Okay, folks, hopefully I'm now streaming live on YouTube, albeit to a private stream. Hopefully you can all see me and see Xcode behind me. I'm going to go ahead and bring up, if I can, the YouTube chat area, so hopefully you can see what I'm seeing at the same time. I'm going to take a couple of clicks to that exactly right, but that'll be there in a moment, all being well. If you do see something on my screen, hopefully there, Mark's seen it, good, that's good to know. That's a good sign. Otherwise, I'll be talking to myself for the next few hours, or in fact, whole day. So if I bring up my chat area, where's the chat area? It's like this one. That's it. Yep, that's my live stream. One. And then I pop out the chat. There we go. Pop out chat. Okay. So I'll bring this chat window over here somewhere. Okay. So you can hopefully see roughly what I see, which is good. There we go. Okay. So I expect it'll be a slightly rocky first few minutes. I think folks are literally still joining the channel, which is fine. We'll get there in the end. But it might be a few rocky minutes while they're getting going, getting moving. Hopefully it'll settle down once we are going. So if you can, please, someone, I can't do everything. If you see someone on the Slack in the # general saying, let me in, let me in, let me in, give me a kick. I won't see it. I can't do Slack and Xcode and chat window at the same time. So please do, if you could, give me a kick about Slack and I'll make sure they get invited there. That'd be great. Okay, so this is the iOS Accelerator Workshop Day 1. You can hear the dogs already barking downstairs. Thanks, dogs. This is a one-day workshop being run twice, entirely raising money for charity, and it's already done a huge amount of good for good causes, which is amazing. The main fundraiser is past $21,000 already, and I had to close it like a day and a half ago to avoid too many communication problems with last-minute sign-ups. And so I was asking folks to donate to a different charity, a homeless charity locally, and that's already had more donations. So it's just amazing. Thank you so much for being so generous, and of course, hopefully coming here to learn some Swift and having a good time and getting free books and stuff, but also supporting good causes, because frankly, I'll be damned if I don't use what platform I have to make a difference to as many folks as I can for as long as I can. That's what my goal is. Anyway, you're here because either you bought a ticket or someone gave you a ticket. Both is awesome. I'm really, really pleased to have you. And our goal is to build a complete app using SwiftUI, Core Data, and Combine, more or less from scratch in a single day. And that's a lot. It's going to be really, really packed. And it'll be really fast and such. We'll cut a handful of corners, like some tiny shortcuts that I'll even tell you ahead of time, just to save some really boring bits that wouldn't be terribly interesting, but nothing major. All the core bits will be exactly right. That's the plan. Along the way, because we haven't got a lot of time, I don't want to have too much in terms of breaks. I'm thinking one short comfort break in the morning, one short comfort break in the afternoon, and then a half-hour lunch break. So it's going to be really quite packed. I would encourage you very strongly to use the breaks, because you need to get away from your desk and to stretch your legs. I don't want deep vein thrombosis as a result of charity work. So please just get up and walk around, get away from your screen, stretch your legs, go to the bathroom, whatever you want to do in those breaks, in that lunch break. That'd be really, really great. Hopefully you're here now. If you're watching it live, you've got the YouTube live stream link for now. There's one for the afternoon as well. And I'm sure some kind soul post that in the Slack workspace isn't here already. That's a separate one, because I'll end the stream at lunchtime, which is like 5:30 p.m. my time, I think. Anyway, they'll end the stream at some point, and we will come back in the afternoon on a different stream, the part 2 stream. So please join the correct stream at the right time. Also, there is this #Accelerator channel on the Slack, which is really, really great, because YouTube, internet, technical problems galore. I've got no idea if this thing catches fire. It's Xcode, you know what it's like. And so by having a Slack workspace there in case things catch fire, it's a great place to be. Anyway, we're going to be using Xcode 12.5 for all this workshop. I have mentioned this several times in the Slack and on Twitter. Hopefully you have all got that installed now. And there we go, the dogs. It did not take them long. And they're dressed up, by the way. You can see they've got the little walking coats on if you look carefully. Yes, I see you. I see you. So hopefully by now you've all got Xcode 12.5 installed. If you have not, it is bluntly too late now. It's too slow to install it this fast. You're kind of stuck with Xcode 12.4 or whatever else you've got. It'll be 12 point something, mind you. I can't handle 11 here at all, I'm afraid. Right, dogs. Right. You get a treat later on. Go on, clear off. Clear off. Okay. So hopefully you've got Xcode 12.5. If you do want to use 12.4, by all means you can try. It might catch fire. Eric asks, what's the Slack link? The Slack link is there. Go ahead and DM me on the... Oh, I'll do it now real fast. So who wants to come in? Fito wants to be in. So let's add people, add Fito wants to be in, and Jose C. There are lots of... There are Jose Quadros, I'm guessing. And... There's one more, was there? Oh, Eric hasn't joined just yet, so I'll add those two for now. You're in the channel now. Thank you very much for that, folks. And Eric, when you get there, just give me a ping on Slack and I'll add you in. What was I saying? Oh, yes, right. So, Xcode 12.5. Along the way, yes, it's fast. It's lightning fast. We've got a lot to get through. 3 big topics all by itself in one stream. But I really want to encourage you to ask questions. Like, this is your workshop. Slow me down. I'll repeat stuff. I'll try different approaches if you want to. We can experiment as we go. That's the point of the workshop. It's not just like, follow this, follow this, follow this, follow this. If we do that, which we totally can do if you want me to, crikey. If we do that, you're not going to learn as much as actually getting involved and asking questions and trying things out. So I'd recommend, if you want to, ask away. Do my best to answer, even dog questions. Anyway, I hope, given the small group behavior we have here, it's unlikely we'll have problems as we go along, but I just want to remind folks of my usual rules for doing live streams. No feigned surprise. So if someone says, I haven't used closures before, for example, you don't go, how could you not know what closures are? That's a grim thing to do. Please don't do that. Second, no subtle isms. That's sexism, ageism, racism, yada, yada, yada. Any of those, I'm sorry, it's a charity event. You're just going to get an instant ban. I haven't got the patience for that. And third, no backseat driving. So if someone asks for help in the Slack and you'll provide the help, go for it. Help them out. But don't just sort of lob a line of code at them and hope it just sink or swim. Not very nice to do that either. So just be nice. It's the short version. Okay, let's talk about our project, because we're going to be using the movie database, TMDB. This is a huge collection of movie data that's completely free for personal use. And you can get your own API key if you want to and try it out. Batev, hello. Let's add you now. You get your own API key if you want to. And it's free. It's completely free to do. So I recommend it. Go and check it out. I provide a testing key for you in the project you'll download in a second, so that if you didn't want to register for a key, just use mine. There's a big warning you'll see. This key, a testing key, it might go away at any point in the future. Please do not use it for shipping apps, yada, yada, yada. But if you just want a quick workaround now, by all means, just do that. It's fine. Who else wants to be added? Anyway, I like to text me. There's a URL. If you want to get your own link, you can do. Let me add that to Safari. Where is Safari? Give me a new window. It's that window there. So it's TMDB. Yeah, so we've got the moviedb.org. Like that. You can go ahead and grab your own API key if you want to. And again, it's completely free. All you gotta do is make an account, like a free account on their system for handling, if you want to rate movies and stuff, yada, 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 you can do. But that link also, if you go to your preferences and choose API, your own personal API key, you get your own request. And there's no rate limiting. It's just as many requests as you want. All they ask is give them credit. If you're using their pictures and their API, yada, yada, at least say so. And if you want to make money from it, if you're like selling your movie database somehow, then please tell them and they might charge you a fee. But if it's a free app or personal use, whatever, it's absolutely fine to use free of charge. Okay, before we dive into the code, let's add a handful more folks to the channel. Thanks for that, folks. Who we've got? We've got Mark Conway. Did I see Jan up here? thought I did. There he is, Jan Velarkel. There we go. Add those two. Is anyone else? I'll add those two and see where it gets me. That's probably a big step forward as it is. Okay. If you want to be added, just hit me in the chat and I'll add you into the channel. Okay, so that's the intro kind of out of the way. I want to walk you through the project we've made so far. It's a sample project with a handful of very, very small, basic things done for you. And I'm going to paste the URL for this into the Slack and also into the YouTube chat so anyone can get access to it very easily. The YouTube, the link to download is, I'll paste it in, that thing there, and I'll paste it into the Slack as well, that thing there. Who else wants to be invited? Gavin and Eric. Let's have a look. Gavin and Eric. Add. Go ahead and download that link if you could, folks. And I will add folks while you're doing that. Eric Edward. Nope. Eric Turner. No Eric Turner either. Eric, I'm not sure what your username is on there, so I can't easily add you. Chad I can add though. Chad is, there we go. There's Chad. Download the zip file, extract the zip file, have a look, and you'll see there isn't a lot there. Just sort of the bare basics of our work required to use. Eric, what's your Slack username, Eric? Are you no, I'm not seeing an Eric, I'm afraid. MWS Dev, okay. Yeah, I would have struggled to guess that one, I'm afraid. Let's continue. MWS Dev. Nope, can't find that either. MWS. Nope, there's none of those in there. Let me know what username was on Slack, Edward, and I'll add you then. Anyway, here's the project I have on my screen right now. Same thing you should have downloaded already. There's not a lot in there, and that's absolutely intentional because I've kept it as light and simple as possible. And I'll just walk you through briefly what we've got. In content view is this very large comment at the top saying, here's where you get your API if you want your own personal API key. If you want to use my testing API key, there it is there. Do not use that in a shipping application. It's going to go away in the future. It's just a testing. Like in about 10 days, that'll stop working. So I recommend you don't use that in your own shipping programs. It's just for noodling around, trying things out. The API keys are completely free. Make an account and you're away. You get your own API keys. That's fine. That's there. There's also a comment below with a bit of code with exact values in for an example movie. We'll be using this one later on. I shouldn't want to have you type, 2VA, 32AP, QP, on the streams. That'd be hideous. So those comments are important to things you can copy and paste later on. Next up, we have Bundle Decodable at Swift. I use this in so many projects. It's a simple extension on Bundle that will load any kind of JSON file from your app bundle into some kind of decodable object. That's what it does. And let me perhaps make some space here. Oh, it's Archimage at last. S-Corin. Okay, let's add S-Corin to the thing. Add people. Continue. Corin. There we go. Eric, if you just message the main channel, I'll see your username and get it from there. So just put a message to the main channel and I'll see you and add you in. Ah, Eterna. Right, here we go. Eterna. That I should have guessed that, actually, to be fair. Add Eterna. Let's have a look. Eterna. No matches found. No, it doesn't like that either, I'm afraid. This bundle extension is written by me. Yes, it's my extension. I use it in so many projects, so many tutorials. It's just brilliant for getting fixed JSON files into your project. And the reason it exists is because we're going to do a lot of combined stuff and networking later on. But I want to make sure when we're starting out, we can just get things from a quick bundle really, really fast. And that is all these JSON files across here, credits, details, genres, and results. The sample JSON files I've snatched from the movie database already, TMDB, and put them into the project for us already. That's what they're there for. And that's what our bundle extension is there for as well. So temporarily, it's very fast and easy to get started. We're going to do networking and SwiftUI at the same time. So we're going to work offline at first, building SwiftUI up and up and up. And then when we're ready, we will add in networking. Kyla, please use this file however you want to, in any context, commercial, non-commercial, with or without attribution. That's the license for all my code. I mean, someone pointed out yesterday, Nigel said to me on Slack, I think someone else did, someone's literally shipped, I think, every app from the 100 Days SwiftUI on the App Store. If you search for Better Rest, one of the projects from the course, it's like Better Rest, one word, you'll see the developer and tap their name and see every possible project in 100 days, all there back to back. And someone's emailed me saying they haven't even got the Slack link yet. So I'll just quickly handle that. Like I said, it'd be a bit chaotic to start off with. Let me just do that now. So it'll get better in a moment, I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure, but I hope it does. Are you in today's workshop? If so, please join the Slack now. Okay, fine. Okay, so we're using local stuff. We're not going to handle combined to begin with. It'll be all SwiftUI local files first. Then we have those JSON files I mentioned, just sample files I've snagged from TMDB already, just to get us going, basically. Then in assets, you'll see there are a handful of named colors, plus a couple of little pictures for like missing movie poster and a loading poster and so forth. Little things like that. And finally, there is one package dependency, which is SD Web Image SwiftUI, which itself depends on SD Web Image. This lets us load remote images easily. You can, of course, completely do that from scratch. You could. It's not terribly hard to do, but unless you spend a lot of time doing it, your version will not be powerful as this thing, or as flexible as this thing, or even as efficient. I mean, it's SD Web Image is the standard way of loading remote images. It's really, really good, and the SwiftUI version is just a brilliant wrapper around it. It really fits in brilliantly. Okay, whew. That's the intro. It's where we want to be today. You can see it's not a very large project. We're doing everything else from scratch as we go, and hopefully we can follow along, explore along the way, try things out, and see where we get to. That's the plan. Okay. If you've followed any of my tutorials, you'll know I love to start figuring out my data first. What do we actually have to work with when it comes to our code? I really strongly believe that if your data model is right, it makes so many other things easier. Flip side, if your model's wrong, you're going to fight the whole rest of your project. And so I really like to sort of think about what are we trying to work with. And you can walk around here and look inside, for example, results.json. That's the first file we're going to work with. This is some example search results for the keyword Batman on TMDB. And you can see we get back the page number, then an array of results, then a load of stuff here about, what's the movie's title, what's its overview, like a description thing here, when was it released in year, month, day format, vote average out of 10, paths to its poster, the movie poster, but also a nice backdrop. It's like a still image from the movie itself. Plus, there's also genre IDs here to work with. So there's stacks of things to work with here, which is great. And we're going to start off by modeling that in a struct. We can load from our JSON file here, or ultimately from TMDB as well. So first things first, we're going to add a new Swift file into our project. So press Command N, make a new Swift file. Choose Swift file. And then name this thing movie.swift and press create. So Mary, that's not a stupid question at all. I basically made the API request by hand in Safari and just copied it to a file, to a text file. I mean, the API you can hit in your web browser. it's all beautifully easy. You just pass your API key as one of the parameters to the request as a URL, and boom, you get load JSON back. So I went through and found all the JSON I cared about ahead of time, which is results, genres, details, and credits. Ran those requests by hand. Command A, Command C to copy my clipboard, and then paste into text files and save them back out. The exception actually is genres, which I cleaned up a little bit, make it easier to work with, and added these colors as well to match the asset catalog. But the other three are straight from TMDB's API. Anyway, in movie.swift, we want to go ahead and define what a movie looks like. So I'll say there's a new struct in here called movie, and make this thing decodable, so it can be loaded from JSON, and identifiable, so we can loop over this thing easily inside SwiftUI. And then we'll go ahead and define all the things we had in that JSON file. So all the values we care about. Not everything, I don't care about all possible values, but I do care about the movie's ID. And it's a number, but it's unique to this movie. I noticed, by the way, this data is actually live from TMDB. Batman, like the Michael Keaton 89 Batman, is ID 268. I mean, that was surely 80 years after the movie started. How is that number ID 268? Is someone like a massive, massive Batman fan or something to put these movies up front? I don't know. Anyway, the movie ID, a unique identifier for the movie. Then its title string. And I'll do its overview string. That is, the description of the movie plus the name of the movie. The release date is a date in YMD format, but it's often missing. And so I don't want to parse this thing as a date. And it's missing for things like, is it The Batman, like a new one coming out next year or something? It's not out yet, so there's no release date. So this thing will be an empty string, so we can't parse that easily as a date. And so I'll store this thing as a string and handle that later on. We'll also have the vote average, which is a double. That's how people using TMDB to write reviews, how they rate The Batman or whatever happens to be. We also have poster path, which is the movie poster itself, the sort of, in this case, Batman logo, whatever. This is going to be an optional string because there might not be one. All the AAA movies have one, fine, but random, Steadicam home sort of things, someone shot at home hasn't got that, I'm afraid, so it might not be there. And then the same's true for a backdrop path, which is going to be a still from the movie or something else that's similarly representative of the movie. So it's a nice sort of image to put in there as a hero shot. The genre IDs, I'm going to make a set of int because it's faster later on. We don't really care what order they come in because we'll be sorting them by a name. And this way we can just say, give me them nice and quickly as a set rather than an array. Jeremy asked, why not make it optional? So what happens, Jeremy, is it's not optional. It's always going to be there, but it's an empty string. So it can't be an optional date because it's going to be there no matter what. It'll always be something, but it'll have no value for unreleased movies, which I think is terrible from them. It should have been null, quite frankly. But, I mean, it's not my API. And that's why this project's fun, right? We're working with a real API here as opposed to some easy, simplified one I've cleaned up for you. This is a real API we want to work with. So that's our movie there. Those are the things we care about, at least in this project. And I really encourage you, as we progress, experiment. Try things out, right? Go ahead and noodle around. Look at your own results file. And anything you want to look at, just put it in now as we go. One thing I really encourage folks to do in any SwiftUI struct like this, using actual SwiftUI views, is to make an example value you can do previews with easily. And folks, as you can see, thanks Jeremy, lots of folks had exactly the same questions. This is why I love people asking questions, because other people had the same question and they were perhaps about to ask it or didn't want to dare ask it, whatever it is. So ask questions. Questions are brilliant. Thank you very much for asking questions. Anyway, add an example because it makes it much easier to do SwiftUI previews later on. And so I've made one of these for you already with the exact value we can work with. That's what we had in Content View. This big chunk of stuff here, that's our example movie. So I'm going to go ahead and just Command X that to my clipboard and then just paste it into the movie like that. So that will give us up front an example movie we can work with. And those paths actually match the real paths for the Michael Keaton Batman. Yeah, that's all more or less correct. And it allows us to have something we can look at. If your SwiftUI previews work, then you should be okay. If not, then not so much. Is anyone asking about invites? Mark Respass, let's add him now. So Accelerator, add members, Respass. There are two. I'll add that one. Cool, I got two of them. Have we found Eric yet? There's Guillaume. So Accelerator, add people. Guillaume, there we go. So is that everyone? I think everyone has asked anyway. Yeah. So Gavin asks, are sets notably faster than arrays? They are for the way we're going to be using them. One of the shortcuts we'll be doing is not adding custom decoding, because that's a whole other ball of pain, and I'm not terribly interested in doing that live in a stream. It's quite dull, and the workaround we'll be using will be to enhance effectively a lot by using sets in lots of places, so it's a good idea. Setup, I already answered that question. Perhaps someone could sort of explain that for me in the chat area rather than me repeating it again here. And yes, I'm not doing custom decoding steps. Like as I said, we're not doing custom decoding. We're letting Swift handle decoding for us. And I'll say this again later on. It's absolutely true that if you want to make this really efficient, the right thing to do is have a custom decoder here rather than relying on the synthesized one. But that's one of the many shortcuts we're taking today, is not doing that. Okay, that's our movie. That's one movie there right now. And what we're going to do now is look again at our JSON file. So this results.json file here. You can see that's one movie there. But around that thing will be a page number with results inside it. So we can't just ask for an array of movies. What we actually get back is this different search result type, which inside it has an array of results. And so we're going to do that as a separate type. I'm going to put this directly into movie because it's basically the same thing. Struct search results is decodable and has one property, results, which is an array of movie. And that's the one we decode from the JSON. Fito asks, is it a good idea to add sample data to the model? I'd normally make it separate. It's the way I do it. I find it the easiest way to work with SwiftUI. Like whenever I want to have a view that's showing a movie, what movie do you want? Movie.example. Again and again and again. It's free. I mean, there's no performance cost to it at all. These things are automatically singletons for a start. They're automatically lazy initialized. So there's no work happening there unless we specifically ask for movie to be accessed. So it's basically free and it's well organized. So I quite like it. Okay. So we've now got a search result struct of all the results plus a movie, and there'll be many of those inside our search results. And we can now go ahead and load that into content view. We can sort of do our very first pass of content view. And this will be the first time I expect when, if my SwiftUI previews are going to fail all day, that's when it's going to start. So let's find out now. I'm going to go ahead and try and turn on previews, see if this is going to play ball or not. I'm not terrifically hopeful, but let's find out. Resume. You were thinking about your crimes over there, SwiftUI. And so again, we're going to start off real simple with just hard-coded JSON files using that bundle.decode help method that we added to the project as a starter pack, just to get us going, basically. And we'll do combine in a few hours, whenever it is we get there. In the meantime, I've got a lovely little spinner having a good old think about its crimes. Come on, SwiftUI, you can do it. I've got faith. I don't have any faith whatsoever. I actually rebooted my Mac before starting the stream just to make sure. There we go. Boom. Give it the best chance I possibly can. Okay, so we'll start off really simple. We're going to say this thing, this content view here, has an @state private property to store the search results. And these aren't going to be changed here. They're not going to be changed because we're loading them straight from the JSON file. But later on, we're fetching them from the API, which is why it's @state private var here. So it's easier to change later on. So private var search results equals, and we want to use bundle result.main.decode, that helper method, give me a search results.self from results.json. NJ-ROM has an M1 Mac, lucky you. I do not. My daughter does. I don't. It's very frustrating. I use it all the time. She barely uses it. Oh, well. Load me my search results like that. And inside our body, we can say, I want to have, let's do a navigation view. Inside there will be a list. Inside there will be a section. And in there is going to be a for each over our search results.results. Give me a movie coming in, and then text movie.title. So show the movie titles for everything in results.json, which should be the search for the word Batman. Hopefully we see a variety of Batman movies loading now. While that's thinking, I'm going to go ahead and it took more than a few seconds. Well, obviously it took more than a few seconds because it's useless. I'll just check Slack real fast. Is anyone screaming at me? I don't think so. Win. Okay, so my previews have built out already. Cool. I'll just press Command R to build and run the code the old-fashioned way. Such is my luck. Where is the simulator? Here we go. Let's put it there, shall we? Ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Come on. Nice big white screen. Oops. Couldn't find result.json in the bundle. Really? Really? Did I make some comedy mistake? Cannot find results.json. It's right there. Is it in the target? No. Whoops. That's a bit of a mistake from me. How did that happen? If that happened to you too, folks, then go ahead and add that to your target. That's a comedy me error. Apologies. Let's try it again. Maybe that's why the preview is unhappy. Maybe I'm blaming SwiftUI previews unfairly. That would seem about right, wouldn't it? Come on, give me some Batman films. Even the bad ones. Batman Forever. Batman and Robin. Okay, good. So this is better. Sort of. It's crashing, but that's fine. It's crashing. It's supposed to crash. It's a good thing. So it's complaining to us now that release date doesn't like this. And this is because I've made these JSON files exactly from the TMDB API. And this thing uses snake case, poster underscore path, release underscore date, and so forth everywhere. You know, vote underscore count, for example, it's all there. Swift right now doesn't have that. We've gone for a more traditional approach for our naming, and that'll be inside where is it? Movie. Here we have vote average with a capital A. We're going with camel case, of course we are, which is much better. Of course, Codable handles this beautifully, handles this ridiculously, wonderfully beautiful. And so, James, you press Shift Command Y to toggle up this area at the bottom, and then make sure you have the what is it, output area it's called down here, the console. There you go, console. Make sure that's visible too. Anyway, Codable handles this beautifully. I've actually put that into the bundled Codable extension already. You can pass in a key decoding strategy here, and we're going to ask Swift to convert between the two for us, make it a bit nicer. So we're going to say, give me search results.self from results.json with the key decoding strategy of .convert from snake case. So it'll convert between underscore whatever to camel case and similar. And that should now work better. I might even try previews again. I'm feeling brave. Let's find out. Come on. Oh, my cat's joined us. That's quite a rare one. I have a cat too. He's just chewing some plastic in the corner. There we go. There is our layout, looking good. We can, of course, add a nav title to this. We can say, I want to have... come here. Oh, he's walked off way again, sorry. He's clearly not... Come on. Come on. No, he's gonna look at you from afar. I'm afraid he's down there somewhere, sneaking through the door. Come on, lad. Come on. Come on, there we go. Come on. Come on. Come on. You very rarely get seen on the camera. It's always the dogs. Dogs steal the show. There you go. Good boy. Okay, so hopefully your thing now works correctly. I'll press try again and see if my previous work second time around. Let's find out. He's now 18, Toby the cat. He's old enough to go to university. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that all works correctly. There's a preview now, which is great. Let's just finish this bit up for now by asking for a title. So I'll say there is a navigation title of my movies. And Nigel the cat's called Toby. Toby the cat. And we can even ask for the prettier iOS 13 style inset grouped list. We'll say something like .list style inset grouped list style. There we go, like that. Looks a little bit nicer, a little modern. There we go. Okay, this is kind of coming together slowly, and of course we want to make it better. Right, that's not us done. Right, it's only 2:45. You haven't made it that long. We're not done whatsoever. David asks, why did navbar title go away? Because it's not really a title. It's also used in things like multitasking on iPad, but also in macOS. So it's not always a bar title anymore. It's a title for general navigation. Anyway, we want to have a better layout than that, with more information, actual pictures and stuff. And I'm not a big fan of putting that directly into my SwiftUI views. I much prefer to have special view types to handle rows and then show them as needed. And so I'll press Command N. Fito, I'm not sure what you're adding padding for, but good luck. I'll press Command N. Make a new thing here. If yours is crashing, James, it shouldn't crash. Make sure you added all those files. Credits, details, genre, and results. Over here in the file inspector, they should have target membership, my movies, checked like that. Otherwise, it won't be copied in. That's my mistake. Sorry. Oh, I see, Vito. Yeah, go for it. Make sure and play around all you want to. It's a great experiment. Anyway, preview. Don't do that to me. Don't ever do that to me. Who works like that? Anyway. Next up, let's define what one list row should look like. Something a bit prettier than that, quite frankly. So I'm going to find a row that has a picture next to it, so you can sort of see the poster of the movie, what the vote average is, what year it's released, a little bit of the overview, and more. The example movie JSON, Eric, is actually in the project already. It's called results.json. It's in the starter project I gave to you already. So Fito is trying to add some padding around the list, and this causes all sorts of problems with SwiftUI because, for example, if you were to have a VStack as your top level thing in your view with a list inside it, you lose things like deselection of list rows. They only work if the list owns the entire thing, so it's not great. Okay. We're going to make a dedicated movie row view to handle one movie that looks great as we progress. So I'll press Command N, make a new file, and choose SwiftUI view. And I'm going to name this thing movie row. One row. And, what does one movie row have to do? In order to work, well, it needs to know exactly one thing. Which movie do I want to show? That's it. That's the only property it needs. And with that in place, we can go ahead and build out the entire view. Now you'll see already it's telling us, well, when we're previewing this thing, what movie do we want? Well, easy. We can now say movie is movie.example. That hard-coded one we had specially for SwiftUI previews, which means we can now preview this thing as we progress, all being well. This is why I'm a huge fan of having example values right there in your model data, just to get it working, basically. Okay, inside this thing, inside our movie row, what do we want? Well, first things first, we want to be tappable. So you can tap on a movie to see more information. And that means we'll start with a navigation link. For now, it's going to have the destination of color.red, right? Just show a big red square on the screen. This is one of my favorite things about SwiftUI, is that you can actually push to primitive things like text hello or color.red if you want to, just to make the code compile properly until you fill it in later on with more information. Good enough for now, though. So our row, it'll be a traditional iOS style thing with a picture on one side, and next to it will be the text and other information. So I'll say there's a H stack, picture on one side, details on the other side. On the left-hand side will be an image. And for now, just a placeholder again, we'll do system name of video. Just the video icon from SF Symbols as a placeholder before we put the movie posts in a second. That's that. That's our left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we want a V-stack with alignment of leading. So a left edge in left to right languages. And this is where all our film name is going to be. So we can say there is a text of the movie title. And through trial and error, I found that something like font title 2 looks about right. Is it possible to upload my current project? I'm a bit busy, obviously, as you can tell, James, but perhaps someone else could zip theirs and put it onto Slack. That'd be helpful if someone could just do that real fast. So that James can follow along in the crash-free version. It's my mistake. So movie title, and you'll see it's got this grey color to it. That's because SwiftUI recognizes the navigation link is not inside a navigation view. Now we know it's going to be. That's what our previous view had. But in the preview version here, it doesn't know it's come from a previous view. And so it's a good idea, really, in your preview provider to actually add a preview navigation view like that, just around the preview. So it becomes an actual tappable thing. As you can see now, it's Batman like that. So it works much better. So movie title's there, plus an icon. Next to that, we'll add a H stack. And this thing is going to have the average user rating backed up by the release date. So we'll say this thing has a text rating of movie.vote average. Like that. Lovely. Obviously, we don't want 10.0000. That's a grim way for any kind of human. Fortunately, when you put doubles into string interpolation in SwiftUI, you can add a specifier to decide how it should be formatted. And the one you'll want most of the time for floating point numbers is %G, which means just cut off all the trailing zeros that are meaningless. It makes it much nicer to read. That thing is going to be /10 out of 10, so it should be now 10 out of 10. Boom. And then below that, I'll do text movie.release date. Should now say as well, hopefully. Boom. That's a release date. Now I'm going to check Slack, make sure no one is unhappy. James got his project, which is great. Jimmy's arrived. Hello, Jimmy. Fine. Great. Okay. So everyone seems to be up and running again, hopefully. All being well. So we've got our release date and our movie name and our icon like that. Below it, I want to add a little bit of information about the thing, about the movie. So I'm going to say this H stack here has, let's do a font of subheadline. So quite boldy, but not too bold, like that. And below that, we'll do a text of movie.overview. So tell us what the movie's about. By default, there's a lot of text there. Okay, not in our preview perhaps, but in the real ones, a lot of text there. So I'm going to add a line limit of 2 lines and give this thing .font, .body, .italic. This, by the way, is possible only from Xcode 12.5 onwards. It's enhanced implicit member syntax is in 12.5 only. If you have 12.4, you have to write font.body.italic. But obviously that's all 12.5. You've all 12.5 already installed, I'm sure you have. No one could ignore me that many times. Anyway, that's our row there. And now that's good enough. We can just use that straight away. I can say, yeah, let's go ahead and use that inside our content view over here. Rather than having, movie in, text movie title, yada, 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 I'm going to say, actually, for each, just go ahead and use movie row directly. Now, remember this thing expects to be given a closure. That's this thing here. This whole brace is a closure. So some kind of function that will accept a movie and return a SwiftUI view to show. That's what its job is. This function accepts a movie, returns a view, which is exactly what we get by default for the movie row struct. This thing is a struct in Swift, so Swift will automatically synthesize an initializer for it that accepts its one value, a movie, and returns a movie row. That's its job. And so we can just connect the two together. We can say for each that thing, content movie row dot init. Create a movie row for every one of the items in our search result. And bang, that's how it looks. So things are coming together. I love how fast SwiftUI comes together. It's just things, you can really feel it. The UI is evolving in front of your eyes, it's just fantastic. So we've now got our table there with a sort of placeholder picture and so forth. We can now upgrade that to have an actual image there rather than sort of that video icon again, thanks to the SD web image SwiftUI we added already. And to do this, we want to go up to our imports up in our movie row, this one here, and add an import for SD web image SwiftUI. Let us load remote images. And this gives us a new view type called web image, which we can just give a URL to, and it will load the URL. I wish it's exactly how SwiftUI's own image worked, but just not as yet. Shame. In the meantime, we'll use SD web image SwiftUI. So we have this image here. We've got to go ahead and do something better than that. We've got to load a real image in there. Or if there wasn't one, we can just insert a no poster picture. There's some logic there. I'm not a massive fan of putting large amounts of logic into our views directly. And so we're going to write a method to do this for us. We'll say here. I could use a property perhaps. Property, I'm thinking now. Yeah, property, okay. We'll do property. It seems easier and cleaner. So we'll do var image returns some view. And inside here, we're going to say to ourselves, do we have a poster path? If so, return a web image for that with some modifiers to make it look good. Otherwise, return the no poster picture we added to the starter image, starter project earlier to work. So it's either going to be a web image or an image. It's two different types, which isn't ideal. We'll look at that in a second. So we'll say first, if let path equals movie.posterpath. So if we've got a poster path, attempt to load that. So we'll say load a web image, and the URL is going to be, this is quite precise, URL with a string. I'm going to load their exact thing. Now, they actually have a number of different URLs you can hit. You can read their API docs. I linked to it in the comment in this thing here. You can read the image API docs there, and it'll tell you you can read various widths and sizes of all images and da-da-da-da. We're not going to handle that kind of complexity here. We're going to load an exact type. It's much easier. And the exact type we want, and I'll paste this in the chat here in a second, is https://image.tmdb.org/t/p/. /W342. That's the width component we're asking for. And then the path we've been asked to load. Like that. And I'll just go ahead and paste that into the YouTube chat. It's more or less that. That is our web image there. Send that thing back. And this thing, we can add some modifiers. We can say, give it a placeholder image using image loading dot resizable. We can make this whole thing itself resizable, so it changes size freely. We can make it scale to fit, so it isn't going to, become huge on the screen. And then give it an exact frame with width 60, height 90. David asks, why property rather than method? There's a vague rule of thumb, which is that properties should run in a constant time, O1 if you like, bigger notation, and that means making them extremely simple. It's a vague rule of thumb, and not really a very helpful rule of thumb, because constant time could mean 5 minutes. Sometimes a linear time ON could be much faster than a constant time, but the rule of thumb we have is that properties are for simple things and O1, whereas methods are not. They do some work. My preferred rule is quite simple. If I am just reading something simple, particularly SwiftUI views, I'd put it into a property. That's exactly how body works with here. So, SwiftUI uses properties too for its view, so I prefer to keep it in line with that. Martin asks, why add resizable to a placeholder image? Because you have to. Because it makes you do it. WebImage is not clever enough to automatically make its placeholder image resizable. I guess it lets you have the control. If you don't do it, you get these huge placeholders, which does not look so good. There's our frame. And then below it down here, if we haven't got a poster path, we're going to use a built-in image saying no poster. And then I'll just copy in these modifiers. Resizable, scale to fit, and frame 90. Like that. So we want one of those two things to go back. That's what we want to do. Now, as you can see, it's angry with me because I'm trying to return two different kinds of view, a web image and an image, and some view means it'll return exactly one kind of view if you wanted to. So again, Juan, you need resizable here for the placeholder. Tell you what, don't do it. Take it out. You'll see why it's needed in a second. Okay, just don't do it, and you'll see. It does not auto resize the placeholder. It makes it huge, even though the actual thing itself ends up being small. It looks silly. Anyway, yes, this thing needs to be exactly one kind of view, and you might reach for View Builder if you wanted to. It's down to you. I prefer not to. I mean, it feels like a bit of a hack adding View Builder. I prefer to kind of spin it out to its own view rather than use View Builder, and it is really required. You can also just use a group. Group this whole thing should have the same effect like that. Either way, Swift's now able to handle some view correctly because exactly one kind of view is going back, which is what Swift wants in the first place. So this is going to load our image remotely or placeholder locally correctly, all inside image. And now we can go ahead and use that. We can just say up here, remove image just name video and just do image like that. And in theory, it should be happy and use that correctly, even in the previews. Let's find out. Come on, SD1 Emoji. Yeah, look at that. Batman. Boom. If you want to do anything else with this, you could perhaps give it a better name. Perhaps poster image, maybe. That's probably a bit better, isn't it? Poster image rather than just image. But the actual code isn't changing. And I find this approach helps, really break up the code nicely. Get the big chunk of logic out and somewhere else. Small bits of logic, fine. Put it into your body directly. It's not a problem too much necessarily. But big chunks like that, I prefer to get out. Let's have a go at removing one of the resizables, because someone asked about it a few times. So I put in like a JJJ. We should, in theory, get loading. So Marcus, yeah, it's not brilliant actually how it handles download errors. There's no on error show something image option, sadly. You can catch the error and then do some work, which is not really the same. I'd much rather have, if it went wrong, show this, 404, whatever kind of error, show a picture. That's the ideal. Anyway, there's our mistaking thing. You can see loading there now. Let's remove resizable, and all being well, it is the same. Oh, there we are, phew. There we go. So it ignores the frame size for the loading picture, which is not ideal. That's why resizable's in there twice. Anyway, let's unscrew that stuff up. There we go. So yeah, there's no nice way of doing errors, sadly. You've got to catch it by hand and add some functionality. So now I'm going to go ahead and press Command R. So this is actually coming together quite nicely. In theory, now we have a decent home view, original list view here with results showing all the pictures from all the Batman films. Let's find out. I hope you're all Batman fans. A lot of Batman today. It was the first thing that popped into my head. I don't know why. Sorry. So press Command R to build and run your code, and all being well. Boom. There we go. Lots of views being shown. Okay. Obviously, I'm using this tiny little iOS iPod Touch. It'll look better on a 12 Pro Max and similar. This is a great place. If you want to experiment and try things out and format things differently, this is a great place. And actually, if you want to experiment freely, go ahead. I encourage it. Screenshot it. Put it into the Slack, and I'll share some interesting ones here if you want to go ahead and try it out. Be brave. Try things out, noodle around, experiment with your design, and then just put screenshots into the Slack, and I'll do that. You can see here, for example, I'm looking at a layout and thinking, well, on this tiny little iPod Touch, it looks grim. I mean, this here, rating 7.2/10 on 2 lines, and then the date breaks across 2 lines here, which is it's grim, and so it looks bad, right? We can do better. And if you are using, by the way, the iPhone 12 Pro Max simulator, you wouldn't see this problem. You think, oh, this looks fine. Obviously, make sure and test on these little devices as well, the big ones. We can go ahead and fix this. Fito asks, is it conventional to leave the first name as content view? By all means, rename it. I'm leaving it here as it is, just because it's easier. It's one less step to do on a live stream. But in a real app, I'd much prefer to rename it to something meaningful. Yeah, down to you. Anyway, noodle around. Post in the Slack, let me know. I'd love to see some examples and try things out, experiment. As you can see, our layout isn't great, and the dates that come back are just completely alien for humans, because you can see it's like 1989-06-23, and that's used by, I think, no humans ever. I know, maybe some use it. It's not great. It could also be an empty string, or are there any here empty strings? No, but in theory it could be one, because unreleased, unknown future movie. And so I want to try and get these dates in a better format, make this whole screen look better. And we could do this, like I said previously, by adding a custom decoder. Read the strange date format, put it into the right place here, and whatever you want, right? It's not ideal. A better idea, a simpler idea, is basically format the dates as they're being displayed. Now, that means reading in the TMDB date format. So from a string to a date, and then back from date to a new string. A string of our choosing that is a more natural date format. Now, there are lots of dates, as you can see here. These are all dates, across all date. And that's not a particularly long set of results. There could be hundreds in there for all we know. It's not great having to create lots of formatters. In fact, it's quite slow and expensive. And so rather than creating lots of formatters, I prefer to create them once, exactly how I expect them to work, and reuse them again and again and again. We can do that with a new Swift file. I'll press Command N. Choose Swift file. and call this thing formatters.swift. Well, I just quickly check Slack, make sure it all looks happy. No one's screaming much. So Mark asked if you pause the stream, can you resume later? Yes, you can. You can, and you'll get the videos afterwards too. You get the downloads all you want to. So Kyle's asking, is it a bad idea to give the struct a computed property for the date? We're going to do something very much like that in a second, as you'll see. But the formatters themselves, I prefer to create once and share because they are expensive. So in this new file here, I'd say there's a struct called formatters. Struct. No, I'm thinking actually enum. I'll look at it in a second. We'll do. Anyway, we'll do static let movie decoding is a date formatter. This would be an applied closure. Run this code and stash it away in that constant. And this thing has to read the TMDB movie format. So we'll say let formatter equals date formatter. Formatter.date format equals y-m-d. That's the format they use. Year, then month, day. And then send back that formatter. So that's the one we want to get from their string to a Swift date. Now I'll go from that date to a decent human readable year. So I'll say static let movie display is a date formatter. Again, instantly applied closure. Let formatter is another date formatter. Formatter.date format. This time is going to be just Y. Just give me the digit year of this thing and return formatter. So one to go from their format to our format, one to go back the other way. And like I said, this could be a struct. I'm actually thinking now I've typed it out, I prefer an enum. Like that. That is a better idea. And if you're curious why it's better, you cannot create an instance of formatters now. When it's a struct, you could say something like let wombat equals formatters, right? And that makes no sense. Like, why are you doing what? It makes no sense, right? When it's an enum, you can't do that. You're making it really, really clear. Do not let this person try and create an empty formatters enum. It's not possible. It's a no-case enum just for handling data like that. So it lets us create these things once and share it again and again and again, rather than remaking formatters for every single row in there. It's much, much slower. So that converts from the TMDB format to a date, and then from that date back to a user visible string. When it comes to actually handling the transformation of movie dates, doing that thing between the two, you could say, actually, I want a view model here to handle formatting across the board for my movie row. But honestly, the simplest thing here is to just do as Kyla said, a computed property inside the movie type directly. So you could say, here's all my values. If I ask for a formatted date, then do that work. And so I'll say in here, there's a formatted release date string. This thing will do the work of bouncing between those two formatters to work correctly. So first things first, if the release date is empty, we've got a problem. Don't try and do the whole bounce thing. Just do it once. So if empty, guard is empty is false, else return empty string. Just don't even bother trying to format an empty thing. There's no date. Alex Lundqvist, why not extend string to do formatting? Well, firstly, we're storing values in the type, which is not a good idea. There are hacks to do that, but I wouldn't recommend it. We don't tend to add stored properties to existing types if possible. Second, you can end up polluting string with stuff that's nothing to do with string, really. It's not in any way string related. This is date formatting stuff. If you want to do an extension, You could do a date formatter extension, maybe. But I think having one clear way of saying, here's my date format for the movie decoding is simpler and doesn't pollute the namespace of other types that don't belong to us. Personal preference, Alex, is a TLDR. By all means, it's your code. You can do it however you prefer. So inside here, we're going to say, go ahead and use that movie decoding formatter to get a date from their string. Juan asks, could you make a non-creatable struct with a private init? Yes, you could. But that's using a no-case enum works as well. And also keep in mind, what you want to try and do is convey intent. What are you trying to do? If I see a private initializer, I normally think, aha, it's a singleton. It's made once as a type and shared. Whereas an enum with no cases, I'm like, oh, it's a no-case enum. So the more we can do to convey the intent of what we mean, the better. Anyway, restate is empty, return blank. Otherwise, if date is equal to formatters.moviedecoding date from release date, then return formatters.moviedisplay.string from that date, else return empty string. So that's our bounce right there. Decode from the string to a date, then re-encode date back to a string, so we can see just the year on the screen. Santiago asks, why do I use equal to false and not? So you could do that. Of course you could. And honestly, because I hate it. That's it. That's the only reason. That's the only reason. And in fact, if you look up, it's on GitHub. If you look up control room, which is my very, very large project for handling the simulator, I'll show you a link for it somewhere. You'll see, if I can get the source code for you real fast. Oh, it's still loading. I'm trying to load a very large project and my thing's unhappy. There we go. So here we go. I've got this extension in control room, which is called is not empty on the collection. It just is empty is false directly. So I can write dot is not empty only because I just, as someone said, as Thiago said, exclamation mark, I don't think it's readable at all. I don't think it works well, and I wish Swift didn't have it, quite frankly. Yes, control room's great. I agree. Thank you very much, Igor. So yeah, I prefer to make it really clear, and that would mean, having is not empty or is empty is equal to false, just to make it clearer. And is not empty is even better, I think, having that as a little extension, because it just reads easier. I can read that out as English, right? It's really clear what it does on the screen. Anyway, that's our display bounce right there. Go from their odd date to a real date, and from that date back to just a year, which is what users expect to see. Batman Keaton 89. Bang, that's the result. And so, back in our movie row, we can say no longer do I want to show just the release date, but really I want to show the formatted release date. Hopefully that there will work better. Resume. Have a little think. Boom. Okay. That's looking pretty good. For now, that screen's done. Now, one thing I should have planned out slightly better ahead of time, but did not, because, lol, me. Times. It's now 3:15. I should write this down, perhaps. 3:15, and we need to have a break at, oh, good grief, English times now. So we started at 2 p.m. Lunch break will be 5:30 p.m. Resuming at 6 p.m. going through till 9 p.m. And so a morning break would make sense at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. or so, folks. Is that about right? In about 45 minutes or so. for a little comfort break. You know, go to the bathroom, stretch your legs, get away from the screen, that kind of jazz. Hope that sounds about right. If it doesn't, you know, get in that chat window now. So carry on. Okay, so Vito's asking, would I, let's have a look. So, oh God, I'm trying to get back to my extension again. Vito's got a question, which is a good question here. So what they're asking for is extension string that. Why not do that and then leave enum alone? And honestly, this is about namespace pollution. You know, putting things in there that have nothing to do with strings. That's it. It doesn't make any sense to me have it there. You know, when I'm saying is not empty on a collection, that's literally is the collection empty or not. It's about the collection directly. Whereas this thing here, a date formatter attached to a string called movie decoding, that, you know, your entire project now gets access to this one thing, and you're like, well, what does it do? Why do I need that? And maybe that's used only in one screen. In fact, it's only used in this one screen right now. So it seems odd to kind of put that in every string ever in your entire program. It is in my head, I prefer not to do that. I prefer to keep the pollution of the namespace fairly small if possible. But again, your project. You do it however you want to. Okay, where were we? Oh yes, this first screen I think is kind of good enough for now. It works. You know, Peter, I'm not against extensions. They're brilliant. I love extensions, right? Just think about what they're trying to do. You're extending this thing to do one particular thing. It should relate to that or return one of those or whatever, you know? Same for my bundle extension. This is the extension right here. It works on bundles. We'll add another one later for URL session, and I believe they're useful and helpful to have these things. Just keep it containerized. Anyway, we're done for now, this particular first screen. Let's go on to our second screen, which is a detail screen. When this thing is tapped, don't just show the color red, actually show some kind of meaningful data. Again, we're going to use fake data for now. That means, you know, reading details.json, for example, and showing those hard-coded JSON files directly in our screen until later on we'll add in combined support. That's the plan. And now TMDB actually separates into two parts here. What we've got so far in results.json, that is a search result. When you ask for Batman, boom, that's your answer. What we're going to do now is ask for more details about Batman, or whatever they've chosen on the screen. And this is where details.json comes in. And you can see here, its budget was $35 million. It's a fantasy action film, apparently. It has the same ideas before, has an English language, has some popularity, has some production companies, DC Comics, Polygram, has countries of where it's made, how much it made, $411 million it made revenue, how long it went for, so just over 2 hours, and a tagline and more. So there's lots of good information here we can kind of dig out and work with. Fun fact for you, Batman, as you can see, cost $35 million to make, brought in revenue $411 million, in practice made a loss, apparently, thanks to a technique called Hollywood accounting. They shuffled the money around so many times with fake monies and stuff, they made zero money. They lost money on Batman, apparently. Somehow. Same way Lucasfilm still insist Return of the Jedi lost money. Somehow. It's just funny money. You know, it's all weird, bizarre accounting tricks and techniques. They lost money on these films, apparently, because lol. Anyway. We're going to use that. And again, data. I want to start with data. What's our model here we want to work with? What's our actual thing we care about? And in this case, that means making a new struct called movie details to handle the bits I'm going to work with. Again, this is your program. You've got time to noodle around, try things out, experiment, post things into the Slack if you want to, and have fun, you know, experiment. It's your project. Oh, Lucas wants to join the Slack. Hello. Let's add Lucas. Sorry, folks, 1 second. Lucas. Boom. There's someone in a thread as well. Fine. It's Lucas again. Cool. So, I'll be using three things here, the runtime, the budget, and the revenue. But there's lots more here. You know, production companies, you've seen how to do remote pictures now, show their logos too. It's down to you. So let's make a new model file, Command N, choose Swift file, and then call this thing movie details. Eric, it's okay, the Slack's just there in case for some bizarre reason, you know, my internet goes down or my laptop, my Intel laptop catches fire, or I don't know what happens, power cut, I have no idea. So I can get on there on my phone and say, sorry, something's gone hideously wrong, let's reschedule at the last minute. That's the main reason it's there, honestly, just a backup plan for communications, because, you know, if I can't get to YouTube, what would I do? Anyway, inside here, we're going to have just those three things I care about, but again, experiment, it's your project, surprise me. We'll say there's a new struct called movie details, which is decodable, with a budget int, revenue int, and runtime int in minutes. Those are the three values I plan to track in my project here. And Eric, if you want me to repeat something, just let me know. I can go back and show you the code, or you can snag some code from someone else on Slack. I think someone already posted the project earlier for James. So yeah, we can share our code very easily rather than having you trying to rush to catch up. And also remember, you can just rewind the video and, you know, catch up during the lunch break, for example, or in a upcoming comfort break in like half an hour or so. That's our data. Some kind of movie details. Now let's make a new SwiftUI view to show that on the screen. So I'll press Command N, choose a SwiftUI view, and name this thing Movie Detail View. Then press Create. So as before with the movie row, this has to know only one thing. What movie am I working with? What's the one thing I care about right now? So it's going to have exactly one property. So I'll say, let's clear up some space for a second. I'm going to say this has a property, let movie be a movie. And again, we're going to pass one of those in as our preview provider's property. So we'll just do movie is movie.example. Again, I love having static properties for examples in my types. It's really, really nice SwiftUI. Okay. This thing has to load those movie details, revenue, budget, runtime, from TMDB. That's an API call, requires networking, combine, yada, yada, yada. We're going to park that till later on today. And in its place, we're going to use our hard-coded file again, just like we had in the first view. So I'll say up here, at state, private var. Again, it's at state, so we can replace it with live stuff later on while keeping the property intact. Private var details is going to be bundle.main.decode movie details.self from details.json. Give me the movie details for whatever was selected. In this case, it's always going to be Batman, Keaton Batman. So much Batman today. And that gets us the details about that one movie, those three things we care about. And now you can just show it how we want to. Now, this is going to end up having quite a lot of information. And so we're going to put it inside a scroll view. And scroll views, honestly, they're not used enough. I'll see folks do a VStack in their body to show 4 or 5 bits of text. And I understand it looks great in their design, but then imagine on a very small phone with very large dynamic type settings and so forth, you can run out of space very, very easily. So I really encourage folks to use scroll views regularly because they're brilliant for making your UI scale smoothly across all dynamic type sizes and all device sizes. Here, though, we definitely need one. There's lots of things coming up, so we'll say the scroll view in our body. And we're going to add, over time, more and more things to this. And so we're going to use a VStack inside another VStack, so we can control spacing very precisely to make the whole UI look pretty good. So we'll say there's a VStack with alignment of leading. Inside that, another VStack with alignment leading and spacing 0. And this inner VStack is going to show a little header at the top, how much this film made as one thing. So there'll be a H stack inside there with spacing 20. And then text of revenue, dollar details dot revenue. And then text details dot runtime minutes. Oops, text not txt. Text. There we go. Someone's got an SE. There you go. I've realized recently that 12 Pro Max is now big enough that when you do that sort of thing, you're holding it and you kind of balance it on your little pinky, it actually starts hurting after a while. I've started doing like sort of stretching my pinky out a little bit because it starts to hurt the weight of the phone. This is old age catching up with me slowly, I think. Anyway, there's our data there. We're going to add some modifiers here to make it a bit more formatted. We're going to say it's got a foreground color of white. Oops, dot white even. Dot white. A font of dot caption dot bold. Again, if you're using Xcode 12.4, you've got to do font dot caption dot bold. It has not got the improved member syntax of Swift 5.4. A frame of max width dot infinity, so it stretches from side to side. They get all the space it needs. Like that. A little bit of padding. Make it a bit bigger. And then a background of color dot black. Fill in all the space with a nice black color, making the white stuff stand out more clearly. That is this thing here. We're going to add more to it in a second, which is why there's a VStack in there with spacing 0. That's our initial VStack for now. Below that, we'll say the movie's overview. It's text. So that's just text, movie. Go on, laptop, movie. Oh, it's really struggling today. Good grief. Look. MOVIE. Thank you. Dot overview. With some padding. I'm going to use padding this time of a set of horizontal and bottom. Like that. It'll snap in a second, all being well. There we go. Boom. And then for our whole thing, our whole scroll view, is there a simple way to keep up dark mode? Well, so Marcus, I've intentionally made this thing have black and white no matter what dark mode is being used. So it'll always have black and white there. The main text here, overview, hasn't got a color attached. Neither is the background of the scroll view. They will flip correctly when you're using other modes. For a whole scroll view, I'll say this thing has a navigation title of movie.title. And importantly, according to Apple's human interface guidelines, navigation bar display, there you go, mode of dot inline. So use the skinny inline display mode rather than anything else. Again, you can put that inside a pretend nav view for the preview purposes only. So you might say navigation view down here. Good question from Glenn. Should we movie details view? Probably. I think what happened was I probably called it detail view initially. So it's content view and detail view, which is a pretty old school iOS way of naming views. And I thought, no, that's too vague. I'll call it movie detail view instead. And I'm clearly inconsistent, and Glenn spotted my inconsistency. Sorry, Glenn. What I can say, my redeeming thing here is I like to add view to the name of my views. SwiftUI does not always do this. Of course, button and text fields and so forth doesn't always have view in it. But for my views, I like to have the word view in there so it stands out from the structs behind it, or the view models behind it. Yeah, by all means, call this movie details view with an S, Glenn. Eric doesn't like font caption bold. Chances are, Eric, you're on Xcode 12.4 or earlier, if I had to guess. And so you'll have to do font. Oh, thanks, NJ-ROM. Thanks, yes, Xcode 12.4 and earlier. You'll say font.caption.bold. That'll be it. There may be unknown bugs with 12.4 I don't know about, but that one I do know about because, of course, I run what's new in Swift.org, which hopefully you've all seen. .com, sorry, crikey. This thing here, it is bright orange. But the first thing on the list, bang, improved member syntax. You can do .red before, but if you want to do opacity as well, you have to do color.red opacity, and now in 12.5 onwards, you can do .red opacity. Same thing here, just obviously with .bold and italic instead. Anyway, great feature, love it. Loved typing less. I'm super lazy, super lazy. Someone's asking for me on the general thing. Chris wants to be in the channel. That's fine. Chris, let's add Chris in now. Chris, there we go. Yeah, NGR, it's a lovely addition. I love these kinds of Swift tweaks that just make it nicer, a little bit nicer, a little bit nicer, again and again and again. It's exactly how I want Swift to be. The massive changes, property wrappers, for example, I'd rather see fewer of those. Little tweaks, just cleaning up the language, making it nicer to type, less to type. I am all behind. I love those kind of changes. Okay. So there's our detail view. It's obviously very, very simple, but you get the point. We can go ahead and use that immediately. We can say back in our movie row, which is, for me, here, we're currently pushing to color.red, big red screen. What we really want to do is actually push to movie detail view with movie of movie, or movie details view if you're a bit smarter than I am. And that should get us something better. Let's find out. I'm going to build and run my code. Have a look. Come on. I'm really hoping for an iMac Pro. The new iMacs are gorgeous. I love them so much, but not enough RAM, not enough storage. Anyway, Batman Begins. Yes. Well, see, every Batman plot sounds the same. I love it. Okay, Batman, first one. Yeah, the Joker. Yeah, it could be any Batman, couldn't it, really? Batman Returns? Penguin? There we go. Okay. This is working better. It's actually working better. It's still showing the same revenue and same runtime for every movie because we've hard-coded that to read in the details JSON file, but it's a step forward. Jeremy, yes, Space Gray iMac Pro. I don't really mind. I'll take hot pink. If it's got 8 terabytes of storage and at least 64 gigs of RAM, I am there. I cannot wait. Also, I can't afford a Mac Pro. That's way out of my price range, quite frankly. Mac Pros are extraordinarily expensive. Actually, one of these workshops, just not for me, but for me rather for charity. Please buy Paul an iMac Pro workshop, a Mac Pro workshop, sorry. Anyway, let's spice this view up a little bit because we've got the backdrop path. And the backdrop path is like a still from the movie or something like that that looks good. It's a good backdrop behind stuff. And if you want to be more advanced and fancy, you could sort of do a nice blur effect perhaps, or a gradient, or who knows what. It just adds some color to the whole layout quite nicely. So back in our movie detail view over here, we're going to add support for SD web image Swift UI again. So import SD web image Swift UI. You sold a Mac Pro for an M1 Mac. I can imagine it's faster, but how do you afford a Mac Pro? I don't know how people do this. I'd get a better job, clearly. I cannot never afford a Mac Pro. Anyway, yes, I know it's faster. I bought a little MacBook Pro for my daughter to use at school because she's now old enough to get a laptop at school. And yeah, it's beautiful. The battery life is ridiculous. I love it so much. But I need storage. I'm doing 4K video. I cannot handle very little storage. Anyway, focus, Hudson, focus. Remote images. We're going to do remote images here in our movie detail view. And this thing here is going to be right here in our layout. There's VStack here. That's our revenue. That's our minutes. Right before this thing, right here, we want to bring in the backdrop path for our movie. To add some nice color at the top. It's a tiny bit of logic, you know, it's if let, but not much. I don't feel too bad about putting it here. This is very similar to the magic URL we had for the poster path. So you'll see in a second. So if let path equals movie.backdrop path, if we have one of these backdrop paths, then place a web image with the URL being URL string. It's going to be https://image.tmdb.org/t/p. The width of this one, I'm going to use W1280. So really wide. So it'll look great even on your iPhone 12 Pro Max size devices. And then add to the end of it our path that we got from the backdrop path. Place one of those. Give it a placeholder, just like as we had before. This time, though, it's not an image I want to use. It's just a gray color. So we've got to pass this thing a closure, a view builder to place your own custom layout. Boom, there's our picture so far, as you can see. Placeholder will be color.gray with a frame of max height. I can't even see any more Xcode. Thank you. Xcode 200. There we go. Missing an E by accident. There we go. That placeholder. Let's space out slightly so you can read what's going on better. Is that right? There we go. Make the whole thing resizable. And make the whole thing scale to fill. Because I'd rather it took up all space that's available rather than try and shrink down. And give it a frame with a max height of 200. So no bigger than some arbitrary good-looking size. And that's what we get. As you can see, it's a still from the movie with Kim Basinger. It's quite a long time ago, crikey. Next to, I don't think Michael Keaton's in there. It's an empty batsuit from what I can tell. The point is, it's a bit of color for our layout, looking a lot nicer, a lot more interesting. Again, there is stacks of room to experiment here. Go and try things out. Go experiment. Paste some screenshots in the Slack. I'd love to see what you're noodling around with and what you think would look good on this screen. Anyway, we can go further. I want to talk about genre here because the API from TMDB gives us genre in two different ways, and neither is ideal. We already have genre loaded, you remember, in our movie struct here. It's a set int. Hey, stacks of room. No, it's not a pun. I've got two kids. I'm too tired for puns. I don't do puns. The URL. Yes, of course. The URL for the image is fine. It's going to be that. Oops. Try again. That. It's pretty much the same thing we had for the poster URL. Just, I think it's the width is bigger. Anyway. Yes. JSON files. So we have our results gives us IDs. I'm 14 and I'm 28. Great. Or I'm 16, 28, 12, 80, and 14. Utterly meaningless. The details is slightly better. It tells us somewhere, being well, there we go. I am a 14 fantasy and a 28 action. Or I am a whatever, right? So it's slightly better. But what I really want to do is use our genres. Use our genres because in my genre JSON file, you can see it's organized by the ID of the thing to do. So it's 12 is the key for the JSON. So it's much faster lookup than having to search through an array. It's the instant hash value lookup. But also we have color names that exactly match the color names I added previously to the asset catalog. Who knew? Okay, I'm not totally unprepared. They're ready to go and they're already cleaned up and they're fast for access and so forth, but it's still not quite right. You know, I'd love to have done this even better, but I couldn't quite do it because of the way JSON works. So we'll do a bit of a hackery here. Because our movie Swift file has a set of integers as its genre IDs. I'm a 12, a 14, a 28, for example, whatever it is. So a set of integers. And our JSON file has strings for keys. 12 is adventure, gold, 14 is fantasy, pink, and so forth. And that's required. JSON does not let you do integer key names. You know, obviously Swift's dictionary does, JSON does not. And so we've got a bit of work here to try and map these two things together. And it's not a lot, but a little bit. Now, again, the best thing to do here, the ideal optimal solution, is to have custom decoding code for your types. You know, when you load your movie from JSON, convert its IDs into actual genre types then once in a one-off cost. That is hideously boring to write anyway, particularly on a live stream. We're going to skip it, one of our many shortcuts today. So we're not going to do that. Instead, we'll look them up dynamically with a little bit of time saving, as you'll see. So first things first, I'm going to make a new type in here that will track all the genre we want to work with. So I'll press Command N and choose Swift file and name this thing genre. Boom. And for our genre, we have three things we care about. What's its ID, what's its name, and what's its color. That's our genre. So I'll say there's a struct called genre, which is decodable and identifiable. It has a name string. It has a color string. And these names, you know, 11, 12, 28, whatever it is, they're unique. They're going nowhere. And what we can actually do is make that into an ID directly. I'll do var ID string is just the name of the genre, like that. So I'll say fantasy, pink, horror, red, whatever it is. That's the ID as well. So ID will be horror, for example. Now, for the trick. We want this thing once to load all the genre up front. And these don't change. There's no other genres being invented, I don't think. You know, horror, western, documentary, drama, they're kind of fixed in stone at this point. And if one did come another one in 15 years' time, you could maybe release an app update here. So I'm not too worried too much about that. We're going to say right in here another static let all value. So we can say genre.all and get back all the values from our genre. And this will be bundle.decode, .decode. And we're going to ask for our string genre dictionary. So if you remember, our dictionary is going to be, you know, string for the key, genre, string, genre, and so forth. That's what we're decoding here. Give me that string genre thing from genre.json, like that. Hooray. And if we look at that, if we do like genre.all, you'll see we've got a dictionary, which is a string, key, genre, value. And if we had a custom decoding method for our movie type, then we'd be able to convert our movie's genre IDs into genres as we make them, as we decode them. We don't. Shortcut, we're not doing it here. What we really want to do is have a dictionary with integers as the keys and genre as values. So we can do a really fast set dictionary lookup to pull them both of them together. And so we can map this thing, transform this thing somehow by calling map. And it'll be passed in two values. Here's the key as the first value, $0, and the value of second value, $1. So we'll say what we'll send back is a tuple with int of $0 or 0. So convert the string 12 into the number 12 or 0 if we can. And also $1. So the value, whatever the value was, send that back. So you've got to think about in here, we're getting string genre. So we're going to get back from this key string 16, value, a genre, the name animation, color green. That's what we're getting back right now, the simple bundle main decode. This map is transforming it into an array of tuples, where the first value is the integer form of the key. So rather than being string 16, it's now the number integer 16, which is much nicer for speed purposes. If that fails, because string to int can fail, you might have had a string fish, for example, that'll fail to be an integer, obviously. Then use 0, but obviously we've used our hard-coded genre JSON. That's not going away, that's fixed JSON. You could very easily force and trap that if you wanted to. And then use $1, the value, the previous genre. And now what's happened is, if we do genre.all, look at code completion, you're going to see we've now got, oops daisy, come on, AL, there we go. It's now an array of tuples, where a tuple is an int and a genre. Int genre. Okay? Stay with me. This is worse, right? This is worse than what we had, because now we're going to go through every item and say, you number 12, no, you number 12, no, you number 12, again, again, again. What we want to have is int genre as a dictionary. We want that thing there, and we can get that because dictionaries have a built-in initializer called unique keys with values, and you pass this thing an array of tuples of key values, and it gets made into a full dictionary. So we can use exactly that here. We can say around this dictionary unique keys with values, that thing, that whole thing. And now genre.all will be an int genre dictionary. Exactly what we want. Again, if you don't mind writing custom decoders galore, you'd do this, you know, a slightly prettier way. You wouldn't decode to string genre and then make it int genre out of the box. It's fractionally more efficient. But this is a nice shortcut. So at this point, we now have all our genres loaded and ready to work as a dictionary. We can say, give me genre 12. Bang, there you go. Instant. It's a hash table lookup, hash lookup. Dictionaries are lightning fast. So we can look up any number of values instantly with dictionaries, which is great. Now, we can add another property to our movies. Our movie struct, which is, I've lost it at this point. Let's go over here somewhere. Movie over here. There we go. And its job's going to be, I don't want a set int. I don't care about set ints. I want to get back an array of genres to work with. That's what I care about. And we'll add a property to this to do just that. And again, custom initializer, custom decoding, do it all by hand with decoding. You do it once and pay the cost once, much nicer. Here, we're going to do it as a computed property. And honestly, it's only going to be called once anyway. It's not a massive speed difference, but it's nice to have regardless. So this thing is going to be called genre in movie.swift, and I return an array of genre. And what we want to do is go over all the genre we have and say, do you have a value? And if we do, pass it on. Fito's asking, why not use compact map? Trust me, I love compact map. I'm about to use it right now. I don't think you can, because the tuple itself. So tuples are key value pair or whatever, 3 or 4 values, whatever they are. You can have tuple with null values inside it, or have an optional tuple as a whole, or Galaxy Brain have an optional tuple with optional values inside. In this case, our tuple is never going to be nil, unless you have an if let on the int immediately. The tuple is always going to be non-nil. So compact map wouldn't actually add anything at this point, because it's always a not nil value coming back. Anyway. Yes. Compact map. I love it. I'm going to use it now. We're going to go ahead and go over all our genre and say, are you in my genre IDs? Yes, you are. Brilliant. Give me your value. And add this to the array of genres. And then we'll sort it by name, and then we're done. There are probably 10 different ways of doing exactly this. the one I settled on that I thought was easiest and most expressive was this. If we call genre.all.compact map, we'll be given the key and value for our genres. We're given, 12 action, 14 adventure, I don't know, 28 spy movie, I don't know what, 500 weird hacking movie with code across the screen in C code, whatever, flying by on the screen, I don't know. We're going to get back the key and value, number of thing and value. And what we'll say is, if our movie's genre IDs, which is a sets are very, very fast at doing, contains. Do you contain number 12? Yes, I do. Bang. It's instant. It's extraordinarily fast doing contained on a set, which is why we're using one. Do you contain that genre? If you do, send back the value. Otherwise, send back nil. And what will happen is, this will send back all the genre objects, this exact type here, that are inside our genre IDs. So we'll convert 12, 16, 28, 500 into genre. That's what it's going to do. We'll then sort this thing. I'll use $0.name is less than $1.name. And that will convert it into a sorted array, which of course is better for the user. Now, it is whinging. Can't find genre for some reason. Thanks, Swift. Oh, it's there. It's just being useless. Cool. Anyway, it's there. It's fine. So now we're sending back, hopefully, all the correct genre for a movie. So it'll say, I am action, pink, horror, red, whatever it happens to be, right, along the way. We can use that inside our UI. And I think last time I'm going to say this, if you wanted to do a custom decoder using the decoder type, you'd do this once. Convert your set int into a array of genre once. Just pay the cost around it again. Anyway, with that in place, we can now go back to our movie detail view and show those genres on the screen, giving the user some kind of feedback. So I'll say in movie detail view here. Oh, it's getting rather crammed. I might. There we go. That'll have to do. I'm going to place before the movie's overview text, so like just here, I'm going to place a scrolling horizontal little set of capsules with all the genres for this film. So we'll say there's a scroll view right here, which is horizontal, and does not show its indicators. Indicators false. And this thing is going to be a H stack of genre names. I'll say there's a H stack with a little bit of spacing. I've found that 3 to 5 looks about right. And then we'll loop over all the genres for our movie, whatever they are. So for each movie.genre, genre in, and just show them one by one. So text genre.name. And hopefully, let's find out. Doesn't set contains return optional, does it? Does it? Genre IDs. What genre IDs contains? No, returns a bool. Both return bools. So yeah, you couldn't. Yeah. No. Yeah, you want to return a value on nil. And that nil's gonna be unwrapped and discarded by combat map and removed entirely, which is helpful. Anyway, what was I? I was here. Yeah, right. Boom. So you can see it's obviously fixed to be particularly long, this one, but it's action and adventure and animation. Sorry, that was my preview, and drama and fantasy and stuff. Right. We can add a bit of padding to this, to the H stack inside, to pull away from the edges slightly. It's best to add padding to the H stack inside a content view rather than to the scroll view itself, so it stays away from the edges. Oh, oh, that's a good idea, Mark. I like Marcus's idea too. That's a good one. That's flipping it around. So that's going to be genre IDs dot compact map, and then genre.all, and do a lookup at that point. Yeah, I mean, it's presumably the same thing. Oh, map, sorry, map. Let's do that instead. Is that happy? Thinking. Thinking. Yeah, do that. That's nice too. That's better. Do that. Thanks, Marcus. Where was I? Oh, yes. So when you've got a scroll view, it's best to add the padding to the thing inside the scroll view. So the scroll view goes edge to edge still, so you can sort of see a thing hanging off the end a little bit or going over the screen a little bit. So for my H-lag here, I'm going to say it's got a padding horizontal of 10. Just so it doesn't go quite to the edge of the screen. On the left, at least, all being well. It's previewing in slow motion. Boom, there we go. And now make it vaguely capsule-y. It's down to you how you want to do this, but I'm going to say these things have foreground color of white and some padding on them. So I'll do padding of horizontal 10 and padding of vertical 2, because text naturally has more padding vertically anyway. And then we'll do background color genre.color. Hopefully I'll snap in nice and colorful. Its own time, there we go. And then a little clip shape. Clip shape of capsule. Boom, there we go. That's looking nice. That's hopefully if you run it back, you should get a nice scrolling list of stuff. Let's press Command R to give it a try. See how it looks so far. Do it. Now. Do it. Come on. Half my life waiting for this device to load. There we go. So, Batman. Only 2 in the real one. Whoops. So you can't see it scroll anyway. Next one. There we go. Brilliant. That's more like it. Okay. And that's a really good, again, place to experiment. Try things out. It's your design, your color scheme. Fill your boots. Make those little capsules look however you want. Now, it is 4 o'clock. And so we'll take a very, very short break to see how things look. And it's your chance to experiment, but ideally you'll get away from the computer, walk around, don't look at your screen, stretch your legs, no DVT please. Go to the bathroom if you want to do, get some coffee if you need that too. I'll see you back here in like 5 or 6 minutes. Yeah, so a real short break, just so you can go to the bathroom and stuff. So see you in 5 minutes. I'm going to leave the stream running, by the way, while I go to the bathroom as well, just so you haven't got to disconnect and reconnect. Anyway. Break time. See you at like 4:05 or so UK time. So 5:05, whatever that is in the US. 11. Yeah. All right. Can I close the console as I can? There you go. Any more questions, or can I also stretch my legs? Coffee also works. Oh, hey, Robert. How are you doing? Right. 3 minutes break for me too. Oh, yowzers. can I show or paste the alternate compact map? Oh, the old one. The inferior one. That was it there. This one's better. I don't know why it didn't even occur to me for some reason. Definitely better. Please do stretch your legs, folks. It's good for you. Who knew? Let's check if anyone's complaining on Slack. Let's find out. Unread mentions, yes. Okay, that's Brent. Add. Continue. Brent. Yep. Let's look. We've got questions here. Stand-up desk. Yeah, I've got a standing desk too. Do I dare press a button? Let's find out. Like, bye. Come on, down. I don't want to do it in case it yanks some cable out. That would be a hideous problem. I don't dare. It shouldn't do. I use it regularly standing up, but you never know. And so I wouldn't want to take a risk while I'm doing a live stream. It'd be hideous. Detail view code. You mean my badly named movie detail view? Yeah, thanks, X. That's exactly what I wanted. Oh, good. It's now going to not let the preview smaller. Useless. All right, there we go. There you go. You wanted overview. Oh, right. So overview is interesting. Overview, occasionally, overview, SwiftUI in its glorious wisdom. Occasionally, the overview is going to nope, I'm just going to cut off. Just going to not work. And honestly, it's frustrating. I wish it wasn't that case. If you have that problem, if you find your overview sort of single line with, ellipses at the end or whatever, you might find that saying to it, please be a fixed size, horizontal false, vertical true, will work correctly. And that will tell SwiftUI's layout system it's got to partly respect the fixed size of the text as opposed to trying to adapt it to the container. So if you find your overviews being clipped for some unknown random reason, then yeah, that can't fix it. I don't think I have that problem here. I haven't seen it yet, so let's remove it for now. I haven't seen it. I'll comment it out perhaps. Chad, am I still using a running thing? I've got a running desk, walking machine right next to me here. I do use it. Not recently. I've been on a massive Apple Fitness Plus push now, and I try and blast through my rings every day before 10 a.m. ideally. So I'm doing less walking and more standing and Fitness Plus. In fact, my May challenge is to burn through a whole ton of calories, and sitting down talking to my screen is not helping. Anyway, all right, folks, it's now 9 minutes past 4. Hope you had a little break to get away from your desk, yada, yada, yada. We can continue. If you've fallen behind a little bit, you've had a chance to catch up and so forth. I have checked Slack, and there's no one in there unhappy by the looks of it. Everyone seems to be catch up pretty well, which is good. Yes, looking good so far. Great. Mad Brad's not getting details revenue. You mean this thing? Details dot revenue? It's the integer from the movie details struct. It should be there if you added it. If that isn't working, I mean, and it is actually in the struct, which it should be there, then it might be the case that Xcode is just having a tantrum, quite frankly. It's got an error in some other random part of SwiftUI code, and it's pointing to that as being it's confused. So you might find that actually it's a problem elsewhere in your code. It doesn't happen so much anymore. Folks like Holly Bowler on the Swift compiler team do a lot of work to make really good error messages these days. In the original 5.1 release, it was just a disaster area. If it happens to you, then the only thing you can do, unless you're very good at reading SwiftUI code, is to just grab a chunk of code and just comment it out. Does a compiler problem still happen? Yes. More code out, more code out, more code out, again and again and again. And eventually, the compiler error goes away, and that's the bit that's got your error in. So, yeah, it's like a binary chop for fixing SwiftUI views. Anyway, we've just shown our genre array as a scrolling H stack, which is quite nice. Poeter image knit. No, I don't mean, sorry, my bad. Anyway, we have that, the scrolling genre list here, and it should work correctly in light and dark mode. There we go, looking nice. We're going to add some more information here, building up to getting ready to use combined code shortly. Can I find poster image in scope? Poster image in movie. Poster path? Perhaps poster path. The one you're looking for on poster image. Oh, because I know it was. It was we used a prop, didn't we, in movie row? This thing, poster image here, poster image. I called it image originally and thought, no, it's a terrible name. I made it a poster image instead. It's much nicer. So yeah, that's a better way. It might be that one perhaps. Anyway, we're going to add some more information to our detail view, getting ready to sort of pull in live stuff from Combine later on. If you look at our example files, you'll see we have genres here we used already. We've used details. We're now going to look at credits. And credits contains it's a whole other API call for a start. Who's actually in the movie, and it's its own API call because it's huge. If you look, it's just massive. It's 2,130. It's a movie, of course. There's every single person, stunt coordinators, costume and so forth. They're in here somewhere, all being well. Will this work with Firebase? We're not using Firebase here. I mean, you could use Firebase. We'll be using Core Data as promised in my many tweets and the Just Giving page. But yeah, we're using Core Data here. Anyway, it is huge. It's a separate API call. I've cached it here for us in credits.json to save some time. We'll be using live one shortly, but for now, we're going to use this hard-coded list of people of everyone who took part in the original Batman, not the original, the 89 Batman movie with Michael Keaton. And as you can see, this thing has an ID of the movie, plus an array of cast. And the cast has things like credit ID. That's a unique ID for this credit. It has the person's name, has who they played, Bruce Wayne and Batman, surprise. Has a profile path pointed to a picture of Michael Keaton. So there's a lot of information here we're going to pull out. And then later on, there's cast. Later on, much, much further down here, you'll see crew here. Yes, Vito, spoilers. Sorry. There's crew as well, and this is very similar. It's got an ID. It's got a credit ID. It's got a job. Is the editor of the movie, the person's name, and again, maybe a profile path. This one, the null. Sorry, Roger Pratt hasn't got one, but Tim Burton does have one, presumably because he's big and famous. There's lots of information here we can try and pull out and use. And you've got to be careful here. You've got to be careful because the ID, you might think, is perfect for the identifiable protocol. It's not. You want to use credit ID. And the reason is because very, very often, two people play the same part in a movie, or sort of play the same role in making a movie. For example, if someone was the producer and the director, or the writer and the producer, whatever it is, right? They're going to have the same ID. This is the person's ID. Tim Burton is person number 510. Credit ID is the unique, exact identifier for that credit. Tim Burton, as director, is that ID. And so be really careful with that with SwiftUI, otherwise it'll animate incorrectly, you'll see duplicate data and so forth, it'll get confused very easily. So we're going to add some more data. I'll press Command N, make a new file. Choose Swift file. And then I'll name this thing crew.swift. I only have water. I need coffee. Coffee keep me going. Anyway, in here, there's a new struct called credits, which is decodable. Not decodable even. And it has a cast, which would be an array of cast member, and a crew, using an array of crew member. And these are new types we haven't made yet. We'll make those now. And they're similar-ish. Obviously, member of the crew hasn't got a character, for example. Member of the cast hasn't got a job, I don't think. I guess maybe like Tom Cruise produces Mission Impossible, perhaps, but that's separate. So we'll make these separate. We'll say there's a struct called cast member, which is decodable, and then identifiable. Shouldn't the field name be credits then instead of crew? Shouldn't the file name? Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry. Good idea. You're absolutely right, Tim. I'm sorry. Credits. Yes. Don't do that. Call it credits. Don't call it crew, because it applies to everyone, not just the crew, the cast as well. Anyway, let's try that again. Cast member. If you are in the movie, you're going to have your credit ID. That's the thing identifying this credit uniquely. Don't use ID, use credit ID. That's a string. The name of the person who's the actor, the character they played, so Bruce Wayne / Batman, spoilers, and then optionally a profile path if they are a famous enough actor to have a picture. That is cast member. Now it's got to conform to identifiable, so we can show it inside the loop. So we'll say our ID string is actually just our credit ID internally. Just pass it straight onto there, like that. That's cast member done. Crew member is very, very similar. It's decodable and identifiable. It has credit ID string, has person's name string, has now their job, so director, producer, stunt coordinator, I don't know what they do, and then again profile path string. And as before, we're going to just use a computed ID property string, which is credit ID. Just go ahead and pass it straight on down to conform to identifiable correctly. Okay. So at this point, it's time for you to do some work. I've been typing for ages. I need some coffee. I'm tired. You got to do some work here. You have to use this data or any other data you want to pull out from the JSON file inside movie detail view. Show cast and crew data in whatever format you want. I'd put it after the overview because there's quite a few crew members in there. Load it from the JSON. You've seen how to do it already up here, with our bundle main decode thing, helper. From the credits.json file, which is right here for me. Load it into a credits thing and show it on the screen. Show all the cast, show all the crew in a, down to you. However you want to, it's down to you. Be creative. I'll give you a few minutes to have a go at that, and I'll show you my example solution. In the meantime, I can just relax. I can have a drink of my virtual coffee, aka water. Yes?
Coffee.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Hello, how are you doing? How's school?
Good. Are you filming?
I'm filming right now. They're watching us.
Cool.
Are we online?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
What are they saying?
They're talking about, I've given them some work to do.
Hello. No one says hello.
That's Fito. When I show Credit Swift, there we go. So I've just pulled out various fields from the JSON file, and they're the ones that interested me. It was. They're saying it's good timing for the coffee. You're right. Good children.
You can see what they're saying.
I know, because they're
That's
writing.
very quick.
I know.
And you can say hi.
Kids are great. Highly recommended. The school's good. Well done.
We did PE, jumping, sack races and stuff.
You did jumping at school.
Sack races.
Okay,
Long jumps.
good. All right, children. You may skedaddle.
Bye.
Close the door after you, otherwise dogs will invade. Oh, yes. Oh, kids are brilliant. 10 out of 10. Would have again. Is there a special URL pattern for the image? No, I don't think so. I think you can use the same thing as profile, the profile path for the poster path. That's the one, poster path. But just show the name of the character. Just show the name of the job, and just show something. Or even just a name. Make it like a Hollywood. What do you call them? Credits. The 5-minute long credits roll. That's the one. I think that's right into the movie. Whatever you want to. It's down to you. Vito asks, why is Decodable not getting confused? Because we're telling it not to. It's saying explicitly, I expect you to use this for ID. And we're force overriding it. And you can do that if you want to. You could say, make a new UUID locally, for example. And it even warns you occasionally if it doesn't like what you're doing. It will tell you. It's very clear. So you could have said, ID is a UUID. That's fine too. Give me a random every time, and hopefully, almost there we go. It's warning you. You sure you meant to do that? So be careful. So when there is conflict, it will tell you. It's quite clever, and that's new actually. Well, not new. It's newish. I think that's 12.4 Xcode. That's 12.3 maybe. Yeah, but you get control, which is nice. And when it isn't quite right, it will tell you. Anyway, back to work. Vito, wasting time, Vito. Get to work. Show the cast and crew details however you want to on your movie details view. So you get on. And if you want to, feeling brave, post a screenshot in the Slack once you're done. It's down to you. Yeah, you're on it, Vito, but there's pressure now. Everyone knows watching you now, so let's see how you get on. George asks, does using a UUID create more work? Well, UUIDs are simple beasts, right? There's not a lot to them. If you run like a terminal window, where are we? Here, if you run like UUID gen, that's a UUID. It's a long string of exactly formatted hexadecimal numbers. It is universally unique, which means the odds of a collision are astronomically tiny. Really, really low chance of a collision. And it does that, I believe, by combining like the address of your MAC address of your, Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, whatever it is. It's all randomized by you and then by time and who knows what. That takes work, right? It's not free making this kind of information. The only bit that's fixed, by the way, is the number 4. That there is fixed. All UUIDs have a 4 right there. That is the only part of the format that is entirely fixed. Gavin, thanks a lot for coming. 1 a.m. Where are you? Somewhere in the Far East, presumably. Australia? Guess? Perth? Bit of a massive guess, sorry. The dogs came in, opened the door, and then walked out again. Thanks, dogs. They did not bring coffee. So yes, making new IDs does make more work. It's not free to do, but it's not particularly slow either. Adelaide. I was nowhere near. Well, I was near in my head because, on the Mercator map, Australia's not too big. So I'm like, oh, they're quite close together. They're not. They're really not. Australia is massive. Who knew? All of Australia knew. Oh, Martin, you're in Tokyo. Oh, don't tell me that. I'm so envious. Sophie, the coffee deliverer, has just gotten into manga. She's really enjoyed Death Note. She's really enjoying Sailor Moon, Blue Exorcist, Black Butler, Fairy Tale, and yada yada yada. She loves manga right now. And I've told her we need to go to Tokyo. Go to like Mandarake manga shop and just admire all the manga they have and the anime shops. They have toys and videos and games and great. Now I feel sad that I'm not in Tokyo. Thanks, Martin. Yeah, she's. We're not venturing too far out of the classics at this point. She's loving One Piece, for example. She's saving her money because One Piece is expensive. We bought the first box set for her birthday. First like 25 books, but then there's still another like 100 books still to go, and there are a lot of money each time that she's having to do chores around the house, empty dishwasher, tidy room, yada yada yada, to try and earn her manga money. So we'll see how she gets on. She's desperate for more manga. Anyway, hopefully you are all getting through this little challenge pretty quickly. It is a workshop. That means I want you to do work, not just me talking all the time. I talk too much. Sorry. I'll give you another 2 minutes or so. And I'd love to see a screenshot or two. See how you get on. In the meantime, I'm going to check my currently on fire mentions on Twitter. People are very angry. Oh well. I can ignore them. Oops. So, hopefully, everyone on Slack is looking happy. No problems there. No screenshots, mind you, but come on, Vito. No pressure, man, but, well, lots of pressure. Robert, you should be in the Slack channel, shouldn't you, Robert? Let's invite you. Boom. About another minute, folks, and then we'll walk through an example solution. Just an example, just to try things out. So Fito is now writing my name all in caps. There's no escape now, Fito. We're expecting fireworks from you. Great layouts, beautiful, gorgeous. 3D effects flying in like a Superman opener. Good night, Gavin. Thanks for coming. Igor, you're welcome to share your screenshots too. I'd love to see what you come up with, folks. You know, it's free reign. You know, I want you to feel like you own this project. You can noodle around with it. You can, of course, follow my code exactly, and that's fine. But noodle around, experiment, try things, break things, fix them again, break them again. That's how I learn. That's the primary way I learn, is just noodling around till I really feel I've understood it from every possible angle. You know, I've pushed every possible button, hit every possible thing, explored it all with random values until I really feel, yes, I understand this thoroughly. I've got it. So yeah, give it a good old break. Ah, Mark, look, that's a beautiful layout for Marcus Fassbender. I love that. Let's put that on the screen. Look at that. Yes, yes, liking it very much. Good job. That reminds me very much of, you know, the closing crawl, whatever they call it, the credits list, end of movies. Just needs like a, what do you call it, Marvel's after credit thing, what they call it, after post credit joke at the end. Yes, good job, well done, Marcus. Oh, Scott's here too. Oh, look at that, left and right alignment going there. Yeah, that's very nice, very nice. Look at that, liking that one very much. Good job. What else do we have? There's Santiago. Oh, look at this. Yes. Brilliant. Different font sizes too. Liking that very much. Good job. Good job. It's just great to explore. And you can see those screenshots and go, oh yeah, I like that person's design. And just rip them off. They don't mind, I'm sure. Too much. Okay, so let's walk through an example solution, which you can borrow, be inspired by, adapt, or just rip off someone else's design. I mean, look, no one's going to complain too much here. In our layout, we want to pull in that credits file using the same kind of code we have already. So we'll say there's a new property at state private var credits. Kyla, I'm going to show off my example implementation, which you can completely ignore. Mine's very similar, you know, actor name, character, and so forth. By all means, ignore it. So don't worry about me chatting away. Ignore me for a few minutes while you work on your own version, and by all means, post a screenshot in the chat area. Anyway, credits are going to be bundle.main.decode credits.self from credits.json. We've got to use another key decoding strategy because Robert, I thought I did add you to the thing. Let me check again. I think you're in there. Yeah, you're in there now. You're safe. Frederick, I can slow down. If you want me to slow down, just say, repeat that, slow down here, show that again, show line, whatever, or file, whatever. I'd rather go a bit slower and have you be able to follow along than, you know, type super fast and then copy and paste code everywhere. I want you to write it yourself and try it yourself and experiment yourself as we go. So yeah, please just tell me to slow down. Trust me, I can do it when pressed. Here, like I said, we want to have another key decoding strategy because the JSON file uses snake case and our credits type does not. So we'll say this uses .convert from snake case. So that'll load in all the credits, cast and crew in one lump as one object here. And now we can go ahead and add to that. Now, as we progress through this view is going to get very big. And we haven't got time to kind of split it off into smaller bits here. So we'll do it in one big lump. But we're going to pass the 10 view limit of SwiftUI. It only allows 10 children for a given view at any given time. 10, in code, loops are fine, but 10 in code limit is there. So we're going to have to break it up a little bit, otherwise it'll get angry. And in particular here, we'll find our movie overview here. I'm going to place this whole next chunk of work into a group. And that group does nothing at all. It adds no impact on the layout whatsoever. It's just there to bypass SwiftUI's 10 view limit. And if you haven't seen it before, this is a pretty important feature of SwiftUI. If you look at the SwiftUI header file, like choose any SwiftUI view like text and jump definition, right click and choose jump definition. It'll load up what SwiftUI's interface looks like. As you can see, it's extremely fast on my Mac. Normally it's quite fast, but obviously I'm streaming at the same time and yada, yada, yada. In here somewhere, if you do Command F and look for tuple view, this thing is what SwiftUI uses behind the scenes to make all our views work correctly. And there are so many of these behind the scenes, these things here. So here's the 2-view version, C0, C1, 3 views, C0, C1, C2, 4 views, C0, C3, 5 views, 6 views, 7 views, 8 views, 9 views, and then the 10 view versions here. And that is the maximum. There's no 11 view, 12 view, 13 view. You have to draw a line somewhere. That's why SwiftUI only lets us have up to 10 children at a time, because it literally cannot handle more than 10 views in a given layout. It just isn't possible. That might change if we add what's called variadic generics in the future. So you can do, view ... Lots of views are going to come in. That'd be nice. I have no idea when that's going to arrive. We'll see. Anyway. Tangent. A group. Just to avoid that 10 view limit, basically. We're going to say in here that there is text for our cast in a title font. And all it's going to do is just loop over all the items in our credit cast and say who the person was and what character did they play. So we'll say for each credits.cast person in. Go over every person in the credits for the cast. I'll make each of these into a mini VStack maybe. Yeah, a mini VStack. VStack here. Alignment. Leading. Text person.name. In a headline font. And then text person.character. And then add a little bit of padding to the bottom. Like 1 or 2 points. Just to pull it apart from whatever comes next. So that it's not a big lump of people. You get a break between them naturally as we progress. That's cast. And then basically the same code for crew. So you can just copy and paste all this stuff here. Boom. Paste that below it for crew. So it'll be text crew. Credits.crew. And then text person.job. Like that. Am I stealing Tim? Really? Blah 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 blah. Oh yeah, I'm liking Tim's. Yeah. That's cleverer than I was going for, Tim. I wasn't going for something quite like that. Anyway, there are lots of ways of doing this. Oh, no way, Kyler. Look at that. Look at that. I think we've definitely seen our game being upped here with Kyler. Well done. That is really, really nice. That's one of the best bits about workshops. I love seeing ideas and getting inspired. Yes, very nice. Drew, well done. Cool. It's just different takes on the same concept again and again and again. I love it. It's great. Anyway, show us the crew, the name, the job coming in, and then around the whole group. So, you know, the group modifier here, I'm going to add a bit of padding just to pull away from the edges horizontally. 10, like that. And in theory, that'll work. I mean, it's not a great layout, but it'll work. I'll press Command R, have a look at this now. I think you definitely earned your few extra minutes there, Kyla. Well done. Okay, so I'll choose Batman. And there we go. So you can sort of see the spacing, so it's pretty clear what the pairs are. You can see why it's not good, though, because it's just like, yeah. Movies are big projects, right? It's not even a particularly big movie these days. If you imagine, like, Avengers Endgame, for example, it'd be absolutely vast list of people in this view. It's not a great way to browse everyone in a film. And so a better option, which I'm going to do here, which you may or may not be able to do versus yours, is to replace this with a hidden amount of data. So a handful of people by default, a show more button, and then everyone else can sort of appear like that. And that would mean we're going to have up here somewhere, some new properties. At state, private var showing all cast is false. And at state, private var showing all crew equals false. So don't show everyone. Don't create 200 text views when someone just wants to read how much money a film made. NJ Rom saying make a lazy VStack. Yes, also lazy VStack. If you want to make it lazy, you can do. Here, in this case, I'm literally not going to show anything. Don't even create the views. Just hide them by default. My character has the optional, or I get an error. Really? Credits, character. That should be a regular string. Interesting. I'm not sure. I mean, it's an API that is not owned by me. You might find it's occasionally nullable some values in here. I've tried to make it as right as I can do, but it's not on my API, so who knows. Anyway, we're going to use these properties to say, am I seeing all values or not? Well, that's odd, Paul. You're using the same JSON file I am. That's very strange. You haven't modified it by accident? That wouldn't happen. You have like a little typo perhaps or something. Maybe. I'm pretty sure character should be there. Yeah. Mrs. Wayne down to the really small parts of a... that's character. Other mugger. that's your job. Other mugger. Anyway. Ah, yes, Tim H. Maybe put it into the crew by accident. I don't know. I want to change this layout so we only show a handful of people when we need to. And to do that, we're going to use more computed properties. So rather than always showing all the cast, we'll show only the first 5. Same for the crew. If you press show all, then fine, we'll reveal all the values. Otherwise, we won't. So we can say var displayed cast is a cast member array. I'm wondering, Jose and Paul, whether Tim's suggestion of maybe you've put character into crew by accident is the issue. Aha! Cast member for both. Yes. Cast for one, crew for the other. Otherwise, it's not going to be working. You'll get a crash. And in case you're curious, yes, bundle decodable does a full-on fatal error crash, telling you what went wrong. Because this is designed to load a URL with some data in a particular type from your app bundle. It's either right or it's wrong. And so I'm perfectly happy to have crashing McCrash face all over this code. Because if your bundle is wrong, don't ship your app to the App Store. Do some testing. I wouldn't do that for remote JSON, pulling in stuff from a server somewhere. That'd be dangerous. But for things in my app bundle I know are a Rev crew member, for example, I'd happily do fatal error. Anyway, here we're going to say for our displayed cast, if we are showing all the cast, return credits.cast. Send the whole array back. Otherwise, send back the array of, return array of, credits.cast.prefix 5. Give me the top 5 members in the cast. And that's entirely arbitrary number, 6, 3, 10, I don't really mind what you choose. Just not everybody. Not other mugger. For example, a fairly small bit part. There's no other mug in the movie, for example. And then it's basically the same thing for crew. So it'd say var displayed crew, a rev crew member. If showing all crew, then return credits.crew. Else, return the array of credits.crew.prefix 5. Again, arbitrary number. Choose one works for you. So we're now flipping between 2 different states depending on what we actually want to show on our screen. Make it lightning fast to begin with. And if they say, yes, I wish to see other mugger and friends, fine, I press show all for the cast. We can now go ahead and use that inside our for eaches. So rather than doing for each credits.crew directly or credits.cast directly, we'll instead do displayed cast or displayed crew, and it'll change automatically. It'll call these properties again when the at state changes between false and true. So down in our for eaches, down, 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 here we go. Boom, credits cast will say show displayed cast and show displayed crew. Only show the ones we actually want to show. So top 5 by default. And now to finish off, we're going to add some buttons. This reveal the extra data we care about. So after this for each here, we've shown all the cast so far. We'll say if showing all cast is false, then there's a button saying show all. And that'll call showing all cast dot toggle. Add a little bit of padding to it, like that. Vertical only, perhaps. There we go. So if they want to see all the cast, then press the button. And then the same thing, copy and paste for the crew. Below the for each, showing all crew. Showing all crew. So by default, our layout is super fast. Just give us the least we need to know. Here's the backdrop picture. Here's the runtime. Here's the revenue. Here's the overview and genres and whatever. But then only show the bare minimum cast and crew. And if they want to see more, fine. Show them more. It's fine. Let's find out what's going to build. Thinking about it. Okay, Command R. Hopefully this will work better. Come on. Come on. You can do it. Normally it's quite fast. I think I'm streaming at the same time. Boom. There we go. Show all. Arch image suggests to factor out the whole cast and crew into a single view. I would agree. I would agree. Here is an array of people. You'd have to sort of mush them together a little bit because, you know, one's job, one's was it character? Yeah. You'd either have to use the same name with a protocol or use a key path to the right location. Here's your name. Here's your detail, for example. That would do it. But yeah. I think if we had more time today, we could certainly look at cleaning up this view. This whole group here stings my eyes a little bit when I'm looking at it. That's all right. We get, getting through SwiftUI and Accelerator and Combine in one day as it is taxing as it is. So I think adding more to that would be challenging. So hopefully now you've either polished up your solution to be perfect, which is great, or you've enhanced mine. I don't really mind. Let's look what else we have. Oh, there's Paul Colton's one. Look at that. Very nice. Very nice. Perhaps a bit of multi-line text alignment here for Commissioner James Gordon. Might do it. Yep, looks good to me. What else do we have? Oh, who's that? Fitos. Yeah, Fito, you did it. Good job. Is that a shadow there? Am I seeing a little shadow around that one, Fito? Just my screen get a bit old, perhaps. Oh, kinetic anomalies used with animation block. Yes, I'm liking that very much. So yes, you could, of course, do with animation. Sorry, here with animation like that. Make them sort of slide out smoothly. What you could also do, and this is if you wanted to, SwiftUI 2, so iOS 14, does give us disclosure groups. If Xcode's going to play ball at all, come on, disclosure group, come on. Oh, it's useless. Anyway, you get to have title of cast and a little drop down arrow you can press to fold out all your data, and do it that way if you want to. Sort of built-in UI control. Yeah, there's many ways of doing it, and there's no right answer. It's your application. Do it however you want to. I've got another one here. Who's this from? Oh, Juan here. Oh, yeah, that's really nice. That's really nice. Good job. And then, yep, liking that too. Keep in mind, Kyla, we are obviously using hard-coded data right now. Getting the exact framing might look great with that hard-coded data, but then we're going to pull in dynamic data like imminently, and it might all go to pot. So, yes, there you go. Anyway, let's move on. Has got any more pictures coming in, folks? Let's move on. So, everything so far. Oh, sorry, Freddie's got a question. How does SwiftUI know it should redraw the for each? I heard it uses some optimization only to redraw the required part of the view, but display crew has no at state. SwiftUI isn't as smart as people expect. Large parts are very, very simple, in fact, behind the scenes. And partly for performance reasons, right? That large parts of the view hierarchy system is actually just C++ because they couldn't get it fast enough in Swift. A bit of inside knowledge for you there. It's already in C++ because it was faster. And what's happening here is that it compiles this whole view hierarchy into those tuple views I mentioned earlier. You end up with lots and lots and lots of tuple views. And again, just choose anything and choose jump to definition, and you'll get back to the interface again. And it makes tuple views galore, full of different kinds of things, different kinds of layout instructions. So if you look for tuple view, there we go. So this is the one which builds multiple kinds of things into one view. So thing 1, thing 2, well, thing 0, thing 1, thing 0, thing 1, thing 2. These become tuple views. And it holds the entire view hierarchy together. And if you look for func build, you're going to see them all. So here's build either, which is a true or false. So if you have if A, else B, that's a build either. You have build if for a simple build. If statement, sorry, there's no else. There's build limited availability for hash available. You can see there. So if you have hash available something, then do that. There's build block here. There's toolbar content builder. There's lots of these things. Crikey, what a lot of code it is. Scene builders, lots of these things. Command builders. Crikey. Yeah, so there's lots and lots of these things to figure out the way our code works, and it's not clever. It literally compiles the entire view hierarchy down into single views. So when we return some view, we're actually returning tuple view with an if A, B, and then an else, whatever, B, C, whatever you want to behind the scenes, goes back as a single tuple view. And all it's doing then is flipping between states. When you go from A to B, that tuple view already has both A and B already built, ready to go. It goes, well, I'm now true. Stop showing A, show B. Stop showing B, show A again. And it'll do that all the time. All the time. And when you're learning, like just getting out of SwiftUI the first sort of 6 months, maybe a year, it's a good visual metaphor to imagine a diffing hierarchy. There's a whole tree of stuff here and a whole tree of stuff here. And it'll do the before of stuff and make a change. There's a new layout here and it compares them all, spots what's changed and changes that one bit only. That's a good visual metaphor. In practice, it does not do that at all. It just goes, I've got them both, change that one bit across. That's all it's doing. Now, there is no at state here. There doesn't need to be, because SwiftUI is not very clever. Like I said, whenever we change any at state, including these two, or any external at published or whatever you're working with, bindings, who knows what, whenever they change, it will reevaluate the whole body from scratch. And it'll say, well, okay, this bit, that hasn't changed. This bit, that hasn't changed, hasn't changed, down the line, because that condition hasn't changed. But when it reaches displayed crew and displayed cast, it will recall those properties. They aren't at state. They don't need to be. They're computed all the time. As soon as body is recomputed, it will recompute displayed cast and displayed crew. So it's actually much simpler than people realize the way it works. Sorry, massive random tangent again. So you don't need at state there as a short version. There's no at state. We're not storing values. That's what at state is doing, is storing a value. All we're saying is, whenever body's called again, recall that value. And it will say, oh, this value is different. Return different values and recreate the view hierarchy at that point. How does for each compare to list? Well, it's a layout issue, really, isn't it? I mean, in theory, they should be identical in terms of performance. They should both be lazy, for example. They aren't, but they should be. Sometimes for each is required. Now, if you want to do a delete, you can't do on delete attached to a list, only attached to a for each inside a list. So they aren't mutually exclusive. Anyway, where were we? Oh yes, the next major step. At this point, we've got a basic, if somewhat super ropey, application, right? It works. This thing actually works. And we can do better, of course. We can do better, of course. We don't want to have hard-coded JSON absolutely everywhere. We want to have dynamic, loaded, remote API JSON. And I didn't want to do that first because it's very frustrating. You try and get your SwiftUI exactly right, futzing with designs. You know, Kyla's doing amazing designs, which is fantastic. But doing that as well as networking gets very painful. You can't preview it very easily. It's a lot slower, a bit janky. So now our SwiftUI is in a good state. Not a great state, but a good state. I want to pause SwiftUI. Instead, start moving away from all our hard-coded JSON files. Well, not all. Genre.json isn't going away. That is fixed. There's no new genres coming out. If there is, it'll be in a few years, whatever. There's none of those. I want to do everything else. So results, details, and credits. Those JSON files need to come from a remote server. And this means doing API calls. And you've already seen bundle decodable here. This decodes local things cleanly. When it comes to remote stuff, you've got to be more careful. You want to, start the request, wait for it to come back in a background thread, decode it to some kind of type. If it goes wrong, have a fallback, and so forth. And I've covered this extensively in Hacking with Swift Plus. I'll cover a faster version here. And how we're going to do it here is make methods as an extension on URL session. Fetch me some data, please. Just do this thing. I'll fetch it, decode it, and send it back. That's the plan. And it's got very precise syntax, but as you'll see, it makes this beautiful, beautiful code. Honestly, the result is super nice. So, when I start off by making a new file, I'll press Command N and choose Swift file. I'll call this thing URL session dash codable.swift. Making URL session understand the idea of sending and receiving codable data. Understand sending and receiving data, that's its job. We're now making it handle codable data we can work with. And this is where, for the first time, we're going to add magic 2 words, import, combine. This is something combine does beautifully. This is one of my all-time favorite uses for combine. The second one you'll see shortly. This is my all-time favorite combine usages. We're going to extend URL session in here. Extension even here. And what we're going to say is there's a new method to fetch some kind of data. Give it a URL. Here's where the data is going to be. Go and get the data, download it, give it back to me. Now, this is fraught with possibilities of errors. Maybe the internet's down. Maybe you get back something wrong. I don't know, right? It's not our local data anymore. We cannot trust this. And so we're going to say, here's what I want to happen. Give me an array of search results back, for example. But if that goes wrong, if we can't find it, if it's the wrong stuff, whatever it is, if you cannot give me what I asked for, instead send me back something, a default value, if things go wrong. And when you're done, when you've finished sending the data, or receiving the data, and you've decoded it correctly and you're good to go, then run this code for me. Tell me you're done. And that code, we're going to say, aha, assign that to a variable somewhere or do some work with it, whatever you want to. That's our code we're going to have in our UI to update the UI and do something with the finished data. So this requires a bit more advanced Swift, but trust me, it's worth it. And actually, this is just the first of 2 methods we're going to write right now. The second one's even better, I think, but we'll see. First one, how do we fetch some kind of data? Well, first we say func fetch. That's the easy bit, right? And we know this thing, did I say lunch at 5 o'clock time? Did I? I thought it was 5:30. I thought it was 5:30. Maybe I'm wrong. What did I say? Did I say 5 o'clock? Oh, sorry, folks. I bet Nigel's right. Sorry. Let me just check my massive wall of emails. Blah 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 blah. Did I say? I did. Oh no, I did say 5 o'clock. Sorry, I did. No, 6 o'clock. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Yes, Tim's right. Santiago's right. The next stream starts at 1 p.m. US time, so 6 p.m. UK time. We get a half-hour lunch break, so it's 5:30. Lunch begins. Nigel, I too am hungry. The coffee did not fill me up. Anyway, sorry. Another half hour of me talking. Sorry. We want to fetch something. What do we want to fetch? Easy. Underscore URL. Right? Fetch some kind of data for me. Like that. Now, if this fails, if it cannot fetch that URL because the internet's offline or what it gets back isn't what we expect it's going to be, what do we put in its place? What's our default value? Now, we could just do default string. So if it goes wrong, here's a string saying, whoops, right? That's not great. What we want to do is have this one method fetch some remote JSON from TMDB, download it, decode it into results or genre or details or credits or whatever it is, and give us that finished version back, which means the default value of string isn't good enough. The default value needs to be whatever we expect to get back, just an empty form of it. For example, search results with no results inside, or no movie credits, or whatever it is, right? And so this whole method here has to be generic. Has to work over any kind of decodable thing. So we'll say fetch here is generic over some kind of t, which conforms to decodable. And so we've made this placeholder t, which is some kind of decodable type. I can now say default value will be a t. So you're going to say, call this URL, tmdb credits for movie Batman, whatever it happens to be. I expect to get back credits, a credits object in, Swift file. If I don't, give me back an empty credits file. There's nothing at all, no credits. Like that. So we've got fetch me a URL. If it goes wrong for any reason, send back some default value. And we're also going to pass in a completion closure. When this thing finishes its work, it's got the data, it's trying to decode it, it has done it successfully or failed, whatever it is, it's done its work. Call some code elsewhere. Say, I finished, here you go, here's your credits, here's your search results, here's your whatever it is you're working with, what do you want to do? And this is going to be an at-escaping closure, so a function, that takes a t as its only parameter, which means the function we pass this thing must accept the value that's been decoded. Here you go, here's your search results. Here you go, here's your movie details. Here you go, here's your credits, whatever it is, right? It'll pass into the function, here is the finished thing I've got for you. Hooray, I'm done. And that function will return void. So we're saying the completion closure will take a value of whatever we downloaded and return nothing at all. And the whole method, the whole fetch method will return an any cancelable, which is a type erased object, which we can cancel later on. Like, oh, that fetch taking too long, or a new one started, just cancel it now. Just kill it and do a new fetch, whenever you want to. Okay. Inside here, we've got to write the code, do the actual work of connecting to a URL, downloading it, decoding it, replacing the error we haven't been able to decode successfully, and then send it back. And combine makes this just beautiful. I love it. First things first, we'll make our JSON decoder. Now we know our decoder must have convert from snake case. That's what they're using on our side, on their API. So we'll say there's a decoder, a JSON decoder, which has the key decoding strategy of dot convert from snake case. Oops, convert. Boom. And now for the magic. We can return from this function self.dataTaskPublisher for a URL. URL being the one we've asked for, like that. We will, if that fails, like we can't get to the internet or the server didn't respond, we will attempt to retry that exactly once. So give it another try in case it failed the first time, and then if it fails 2 times, just bail out, just give up. We're going to get back from this a response and some data. Success, here's your credits, or failure, zip, what happens to be, right? It'll respond with the values. What we want from this is to map it to be \data. So of those 2 values, all we care about is the response. What data did I get back? What credits? What details? What search results? Whatever it is. What did I actually get back from this call? So we now have some JSON, like loose text JSON, effectively like this kind of stuff. It's a massive data of this kind of gibberish here. We want to convert that to be, in our case, a movie details, one of these. In the case of this method, though, we don't always want to have a movie details. or always have a result, or always have a credits. We want to have whatever kind of thing we asked for, whatever kind of thing this T is, this decodable thing. And so we can say .decode that downloaded data to a type t.self using decoder. So if I asked for a string, decode to a string. If I asked for an array of strings, decode to an array of strings. If I asked for an array of genres, decode to an array of genres. Decode to whatever I asked you to decode for me. Now, if the request failed and the retry failed, or if the decode failed. Oh, good question from Tim. What is the meaning of \data? This is, if I go to Safari again, I can show you what's new in Swift. Sorry, I refer to my own site quite a lot. Here we go. Swift 5.2. You can now use key paths, well, not now, but from 5.2 onwards, you can now use key paths as functions. And so we might have said, map me, convert this thing to this other thing. We're using a function like this one here, give me the names of a thing, for example. We can now just do \.name. It's a more concise way of doing the same sort of thing. It's available 5.2 onwards. In this case, this thing's going to have two values. It's going to have the HTTP response, length of data. Was it a 404 or a 200 or a 501, where the status code is, response, and the data, the actual payload from the server. In this case, we're saying, okay, we've got these two things. I only want one of them. I only want data. So transform this whole thing and throw away this bit, give me the data back. That's what we're doing. So now decoding that data into the type we asked for. In our case, a search results or an array of details, whatever it happens to be, right? Decode to that. But if it goes wrong, if the retries failed, the connections failed, or the decoding's failed, what do we care about? Well, we're going to replace the error with our default value. So whatever it is, our request did not work, just use the default value instead. And at this point, we're good. We've got either the correct decoded object we asked for, we expected to have, or the error, the default value. And now it's time to call our completion function. To say, off you go, run that completion function. Here you go, here's your final result. So I'll do .sync receive value is our completion, which means now pass this on by calling this function, the completion closure, call that function, pass in the value I have, either decoded thing or the default value, and let it do whatever it wants. And our side will say, aha, the search results are back. Put them into the right place. That's that code is there. Now, there's one extra thing I want to add here, which is really important, and folks don't do it, which is assume the other person, the front-end person, is clueless, right? Assume they're clueless. Don't ever send back data like this without being really, really careful. And one thing you should always do, I think, is to call receive on with runloop.main, which means push this work back to the main queue now, back to the main run loop now, because this completion closure might do UI work, might update the UI with information. It's exactly what we're going to do in a few minutes, right? But you don't want to do that in a background thread. And your session, of course, is going to do exactly that. So be careful. Timeouts. That's a good question, Frederick. I'm not sure. That might be part of URL request, I think, which is also possible. You can do, this one here has a URL request alternative, which we're going to use later on to do more advanced HTTP calls. James got an error. You want JSON decoder, not JSON encoder, James. I suspect there's a problem there. Why a completion handler? Only it's not that I'm lazy, Marcus. Yeah, it's because I'm lazy. It's because I'm lazy. I mean, I kind of want the rest of my code to not have to worry about publishers and similar. You can, of course, send publisher back. And in fact, if you want to do more advanced calls, for example, if you want to, like in our movie details view, we have details and then cast and crew. And they're two separate API calls. So they'll appear individually. I mean, it'll be fast, but they appear individually. If you wanted to chain them or combine them so they both appear at the same time, then you have to send back any publisher tnever and let the core site zip them together to do a single display publisher. Here, though, it's just simpler. It'll do all the work for us. Just send back the cancelable and move on from there. So with that in place, we're assuming our core site is not going to do any special work. They're not going to have to, like, dispatch q.main.async kind of jazz. They're just clueless. They're going to do the simplest possible thing, update our UI. And that's what we're doing with receive on. It's a really, really nice way of avoiding problems with your networking code. Now, we could use that by itself. We could just do fetch some URL, default value, whatever, completion, but it's annoying. Having been through this project ahead of time, it's annoying because we've got to enter the base URL every time, api.themoviedb.org/3/ whatever path, and use a API key, which is a big lump of numbers and hex stuff. And extra hassle, make sure that all our values are correctly escaped. Because you're going across the internet here, you're making a URL. You don't want to have spaces in your URL. You shouldn't have spaces in URLs. You should have %20, %20, %20. So there's hassle there. And so I'm not going to just leave this here. I want to add a second method on top of that. Yes, you can use that directly if you want to, but I'll make an even easier one to get API calls specifically for TMDB. And so down here. And this is going to be very similar. Okay, it's going to call down to fetch internally. It's going to take the same kind of parameters as fetch, but now it's one level higher. What kind of things do you want to do? So we'll say again, there's a method down here called funcGet, T decodable, just like before. This thing will now take only a path fragment. So give me search/movies, right? Not a full URL. There's no tmdb.org/3 https : whatever. No, just a single path fragment, the bit of the API we care about right now. So I'll say get path string. We'll then say, what are you actually asking for? What parameters do you have to pass? And these are called query items. So if you aren't familiar with the way HTTP works, here, oops, Daisy, it's close to Gmail showing. Here, this is what's new in Swift.com. We've then got question mark from equals that, ampersand equals that. It lets folks link to exact parts of the, from 5.1 to 5.4, whatever, right there in the URL. This is the query string. And it's key value stuff. So from is the key, value is 4.2, 2 is the key, value is 5.4, and so forth. But it gets encoded as question mark key equals value, ampersand key equals value, ampersand, as long as you like. Yeah. Those are our query items. So say whoever's calling this, give us a query items. Simply enough as a string dictionary with default of empty dictionary. So there are no query items by default. Now, we're going to pass in the same values we have to fetch. Okay, so it's going to call fetch in a second. So we'll say default value is a T, and I'll just copy and paste the whole rest of it here, which is much easier. Completion, add escaping, takes a T, returns a void, returns an eddy cancelable. And I've got an extra comma there. So it takes the same values, default value and completion, as fetch. But now, rather than having a fully formed URL with API key in place, host in place, domain name in place, just the bit of the API we care about. Search/movies or movie/credits, whatever it is, right? Just a little tiny bit. And this is going to form the full thing. Paul, I just don't. I honestly, so Paul's asking, do I use runlib.main or dispatch queue versus main? I just use whatever springs into my mind. Honestly, does the documentation even say what to use? What does it say? They use dispatch queue. There you go. So, I don't really mind is the answer. So, takes the same kind of values, slightly simpler form, but same kind of values as fetch. And inside here, what we're going to do first is make ourselves URL components, because you can absolutely just futz values into a string if you want to. It's not recommended because you're not going to encode things correctly and cause problems for yourself. And so a better idea is to take the bits you know about and turn it into a URL component object, where you can create the components by hand, and then ask Foundation, iOS in this case, convert these components into a fully formed URL that I can actually use. So we'll say first, guard var components equals a URL components with a string of our base URL, right? Which is going to be https://api.themoviedb.org/3, and then path with string interpolation. That's our basic URL. And if that fails, send back nil. Oops. So actually, I'll make this any cancelable optional so we can fail that one if we need to. So attempt to get a URL component from that. And URL components are brilliant. They really are. Because you can say components, come on Hudson, dot host, password, path, percent encoding, port, query, all sorts of things in here you can read out from there if you want to. In our case, we'll have scheme https host api.moviedb.org path /3/ whatever path you requested and so forth. It'll all be individual bits. We can poke around and rewrite bits as we need to. And what we need to do is say our components have query items. That's the A equals B, ampersand C equals D, ampersand bit in there. We're going to fill in here. And what we care about is we want to make sure we always include our API key. It's required for all the TMDB API requests. What is your API key? And these things, query items, it's an array of URL query item, which has name and value strings. A equals B and C equals D and API key equals blah, 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 right? Name, API _ key. That's what it's required to be. Value, I am not typing that. That's the other thing I put inside the massive long comment in content-view.swift. So go ahead and grab that from the massive long comment. You should see at the top here. This long key starts CDA, ends BAF3. I'll put under the clipboard and then delete all that massive comment. Boom. And paste it into there. That's our query items. As a string, ideally. There we go. That's our query items. But critically, we also have the query items from the user. What they want to add to their query items. It's down to them. We've got to include API key. We also want to include their custom query item dictionary. And this thing is a string dictionary. What we want is a URL query item array. Name, whatever they ask for, key, value, whatever they ask for, value, again and again and again. So this thing here should be our URL query item key. This thing here on the right should be our URL query item value. That's what we want. And again, we can get that straightforwardly. We said query items dot map. You will see this thing gives you a key and a value and expects to receive back an array of T, which is brilliant. That's exactly what we need. It's going to say, here's your key, here's your value, give me back an array of stuff. In our case, we want to return back an array of URL query items. And as you've seen, making a URL query item takes two parameters, a name string and a value string. Putting those together, we have this thing wants a function that takes a string and a string and returns an array of those things. And we have URL query item that takes a name and a value. So we can put them together. We can just do plus query items dot map URL query item dot init. Literally connect their query items dictionary to URL query item directly. The initializer expects two values, gives back an item again and again and again. And that becomes the query items for everything they asked for, plus our API key, which is what you want. And at this point, our URL is done. It's got all the things we care about here, the fixed stuff, plus their query items. And doing it this way will automatically URL escape all the values to make sure they're all safe to use. All %20 rather than space and so forth. Safe to use. And if we're here, we can now read that URL out and pass it onto fetch, along with default value and completion. So I'll say if let URL equals components.url, then return fetch that URL with default value, and completion. Just pass it on to the next method. Otherwise, return nil. So it failed. And so we've written these two methods as helper methods. This one here, I absolutely love for any kind of data fetching for codable stuff. It'll download it, it'll retry it, it'll convert to the right thing, it'll put an error in if it has to, a default value, go back to the main thread, and then call a function of our choosing with the finished value. It's really, really nice. But for doing API calls to the same API again and again and again, it gets tedious writing API moviedb.org again and again and again. Plus, of course, adding in the API key again and again and again. Plus, escaping them correctly with URL query items. It's much, much nicer to do it this way, adding a second helper that builds on the first with easy query items, dictionary rather than URL query items. A sensible default, so you haven't got to worry about it if you haven't got to think about it. Only the path we care about, and just calls down to fetch here. Question from Kyla: how would you use post or put instead of get? Good question, Kyla. We'll be doing exactly that later on. In that instance, you don't want to use data task publisher for URL. You'd use the other one, which is URL request. But, spoilers, we're going to do exactly that later on if we have time. I'm sure we do. We're going through it pretty fast so far. We're going to get onto it. We're going to look at how to do exactly that, because towards the end, if we have time, I want to post to a different API and receive different kinds of data. So we've got post and get at the same time happening. Still with combine, still with a sort of beautiful combining approach. It's really nice. Yeah. So it's not so hard to do. In fact, it's actually straightforward to do in Swift. Could you use a publisher? You can, of course, you can return publishers. If you want to return one, you can do. I wouldn't. Like I said, for this kind of thing, I just want my data. Give me an array of movies. Give me an array of whatever. Give me any decodable thing. That's all I care about. And like I said to, who was it earlier? Sorry. Marcus. Occasionally, yes, I do return publishers. For example, if I'm chaining stuff, do this, then do this, then do this, right? Then I return publishers. Or if I'm combining them, I want these two requests to complete fully before my UI loads, or 3 or 4 or whatever you want requests loading at the same time. Then yes, I would return a publisher and zip them together. But for this, it's not that I'm lazy. It's just that I want my UI to be as simple as possible. I want to have search results for this path. Go. And it does all the hassle for me. I don't want to think about publishers at this point. Oh, what you could do? Oh, I see. You mean here? You could do. Yeah. I mean, Yeah, I think because the thing is, at this point, realistically, we're just bailing out, We're just saying, honestly, it shouldn't happen, right? It shouldn't happen. If your URL components are bad, it means you've put in a bad path, right? And it's a logic error. It's a kind of place where actually I wouldn't be too worried if someone said, var components is force unwrap, because just don't put in stupid paths. And it could be strong. You could say something like, static string if you wanted to make sure it couldn't be possibly wrong. That also works. But you shouldn't be using invalid paths. I mean, if that's wrong, no amount of catching errors and stuff will save you. You've made a fundamental mistake in your code. Don't do that. Down here, I'm reading the URL components out nicely. Only because, it shouldn't ever fail. But I don't want to rely on shouldn't, bluntly. It should always work. However, if it goes wrong, just make nil. You can do it either way, I guess, but I'm not particularly worried about it. Okay, it is now 5:30, which I believe, as we learned earlier, is lunchtime for folks in US time zones. For me, it's dinner time. So we're taking a break for half an hour. Please stretch your legs, get away from your desk and so forth. Don't stare at the screen. Don't sit at your desk. Stretch your legs, have food, drink coffee, whatever you want to. And I'll see you back at 6 p.m. UK time, aka 1 p.m. New York time. I'll just read questions really fast before I go and get my own food. And remember, there's a different stream URL. I'm ending this stream imminently. So when I walk away from my desk, it's going to end. Different stream for part 2. So jump ship across there. ZHub's been using Alamo Fire. Yeah, Alamo Fire is brilliant. I get my folks using it. It's a very heavyweight dependency, particularly if you want to have things like widgets or app clips or other targets inside your code. It can actually get very, very big very quickly. So having simple things like this is nice. Vito, I thought I did give a high-level overview of what I've just done, but I can do it again real fast. Combine, I agree. Combine is baffling when you first see it. But the point is, you just connect things together like pipes. They're called operators, but they're like method calls, right? You connect operators together again and again and again. And, oh, the dogs come in and say hello. Good timing, dogs. Lunchtime. It's obviously your dinner time too. Oops, come on. Good dog. There you go. Some folks, if you're on the Slack, could you share the link for part 2, please, on the Slack? It'd be helpful to help out while I try and feed my hungry dogs. Yeah, good dogs. Yeah, you are good dogs. So, Vito, real fast. What we're saying is, I want to fetch some kind of decodable conforming object. So it could be a string, it could be an array of strings, it could be an int, array of ints, whatever. Or one of our types that conforms to decodable already. Fetch one of these things from this URL. If it can't be fetched for any reason, give me a default value. And when it's done, call a function with that value. Saying, here you go, here's your string. Here you go, here's your array of strings. Here you go, here's your whatever it is you want. Good girls, thank you. Good dogs. Come on. Come on, get up here. What have you been eating? Suspicious. Anyway, do that stuff. Then make a decoder, like I had before. This thing makes the request to the URL, tells it if it fails the first time, try a second time. It then gets back from the request all the data it downloaded, plus what's called a HTTP response. A response code like 400 or 404 not found, or 500 server error, or 200 OK, a built-in server code, plus any other information like content length and similar. We don't care at that, we just care at the data. Get the data from the response, what we got from the internet, the JSON string, get that. We then convert that into whatever kind of thing we call this method with. We ask for an array of integers, so convert the JSON string into an array of integers. Or We asked for a search result, custom object, decodable. Convert the JSON string into that type. If that fails, for whatever reason, send in the default value. You asked for this, we couldn't get to the server, or we couldn't decode that type, bail out, send back the default. This part here says, the next piece of work from here onwards, make it happen on the main thread. So that any kind of UI work is safe. Because you shouldn't do UI work, SwiftUI or UIKit, anything like that, should not happen on a background thread. Always happen on the main thread. You are so hungry. Another one, come on. Always do the work in the main thread. And finally, when we're done with everything so far, call completion. The completion method here, the closure. Passing in the value that we finished up with, the decoded object or the default value. That's what fetch does. Get is a helper method around the helper method, which says the same thing, some decodable thing, with a default value, with a completion function to call. But now, rather than having a whole URL, a complete, the moviedb.org/3/movie/search/API key, whatever, mile long thing, now we're just saying, here's the bit of the API key I care about. And we put around that all the base URL stuff, and our API key, and any extra query items they want to have in their URL. So A equals B, ampersand C equals D, ampersand E equals F, So API key plus things they want all go into one big URL. We then send it off to our call to fetch. So it's a helper to a helper. That's what it's doing, Peter. Hope that helped. Mad Brad's asking, what does T decodable do in these Pulp Fiction brackets, angle brackets? And the answer is it signals a generic type, or a generic function in this case, generic method. And we're saying that this thing has some unknown types. Like this thing in this case, we could be strings. We could put default value string. Completion is a string. Decode a string.self. And like, yay, brilliant, we've made a method that only does strings, right? You could do that if you wanted to, okay? That's how it would look. But that's very annoying because you might have arrays of strings or dictionaries of strings and integers or who knows what, right? We want this method to work in any kind of data, not just strings. And so the angle brackets let us say, actually, there's a placeholder. This T means something. We don't know what it is. You can even call it something if you want to, and use something here, and something here, and something down here. It's just a placeholder, an unknown type. And it'll be the same type used here for the default value, and here for the completion function to call, and here for the thing we expect to decode. They're all the same value. They're all the same thing. And Swift will enforce that. If this default value is a string, then the function must take a string, and decode must be a string. If the default value is an array of integers, then the function is an array of integers, and the decode's an array of integers, or whatever, right? And if you did that by itself, something, it'd be any kind of value at all. It could be an array of dogs. I don't know what, right? Stuff. It could be a Swift UI view. Anything. There's no constraints on it. And you can see it's angry. It's saying, well, how do you plan to decode absolutely anything? Because some things, like Swift UI views, cannot be decoded. They don't conform to decodable. So it's saying, actually, this something must be decodable. Must be something we can get from JSON. Asking why decodable? It's not a type. Yes, decodable is a type. That's what we're using it for. It's a protocol. Something that can be decoded. There you go. Boom. And if you look, codable is decodable and encodable. It's just a type alias. So rather than doing codable, we're not planning to encode stuff here. We don't want to limit this to things that have to be decodable and encodable. Make it the least possible information we can, which is it's got to at least be decodable. That's what it means. Now I'm going to roll back to the T version. T is the convention. I'm not saying it's great, but it is the convention for things you can decode like that. Okay, that's all questions, folks. You've still got another 22 minutes to have lunch. So do I, in fact. I'll see you in 22 minutes or so. If you have questions or whatever, bring them to the next session or ask on Slack or whatever. And remember, the next session's a different stream URL. So look at the link I sent you earlier, or look in Slack or whatever, and grab a second stream URL. Otherwise, you'll be very confused indeed. Take care, folks. See you in 22 minutes.